Practice Podcast, where we cover the only sport in the world where there is no practice. With your mini rod driving host, Adam Kester, Tyler Slaw, and Chase Richardson. Strap in for some debates on the world of pulling, exclusive special guests, and a whole lot of nonsense BS. The No Practice Podcast starts now.
Ladies and gentlemen, pulling fans, welcome to the No Practice Podcast, episode 53. Gentlemen, it has been a while. Adam, Chase, how are we doing this evening?
Never better. It's a holiday season. Another PRI show is upon us. I'm here in Lucas Oil Stadium. Again, Adam's tractor is already placed here in the actual trade show area, I think with the Bowling Green, Ohio booth. Not showing the location, but pulling is strongly represented here at the PRI Trade Show. And anyone that doesn't know what the PRI Trade Show is, it's in Indianapolis. Get up here. It's the world headquarters for motorsports, walking around and seeing cool shit. So nice to be back, guys. I've really missed you both a lot.
Yes, likewise. Adam, what's the booth number where your tractor's
I don't know how good my I don't know how good my internet connection is. I might be a little bit glitchy, but National Tractor Pulling Championships booth is 1933 in the Green Hall. So it's a good location. And I brought the blue tractor that's missing in action behind me. So if you're in Indianapolis, make sure to stop by the booth and check it.
Adam, I've never asked you on this show, based on removed performances, because all three of your tractors run good, what is your favorite one?
They're all good. I don't know. I like the look of the blue one. I've always liked the name of the red one, and I do the best with it. So there you go.
So PRI Trade Show. We're at the full pull booth here in Lucas Oil Stadium. You can see the Foursome Unlimited here. That's my dad's tractor. We'll be here representing pulling all week. I just looked down the way. There's a sled and a two-wheel drive down there, not far from us. And I believe there might be another vehicle or two here, if I'm not mistaken. I don't want to speak out of turn, but this is I think 3 years ago, I was told by the people who run this that they didn't even know what tractor pulling was. Or maybe it was around COVID time. They weren't familiar with the sport, and to come in here with basically the who's who of everything minus NASCAR. I think NASCAR may be the only thing not here in F1. This is a great opportunity to represent the sport we love, and pulling is well represented here this year. And if you're here at the PRI Trade Show as a fan or a spectator, I think you got to have these credentials to get in. I'm not sure on the total protocols. You can buy them, but please stop by the full pull booth, and we'll be here, and there'll be plenty of pullers hanging out all weekend, and you might have a way to find one of these if you ask nicely.
I can imagine there will be a couple of those consumed, no doubt. And speaking of consuming a couple of ice-cold Busch Lights, you gentlemen had your NTPA banquet this past weekend down in Florida, sunny Florida, which had to be a nice change. How was that, Chase?
It was great. I mean, anytime there's any change to anything, you're always a little bit skeptical. But the way the weather played out this year, and it was nice and snowy when I left Kentucky, and I got there, and it was 75 to 80 degrees. The weather transition was amazing. Great turnout. I think there probably was close to 350, 400 people there. I'm not good at guessing those numbers, but it was a full room, and I thought it was a success, and from everyone I talked to, we need to do this again next year. And like most things with, you always hear these stories about banquets, and take us somewhere cool. What's funny about that is with the pulling competitor community, take us somewhere cool just turns into whatever the nearest bar is there on site with the coolest vibes, has record beer sales and alcohol sales for the week. And there was a Miller's L Tavern, I think it was called, right next to the hotel, that I'd say they had a pretty good pretty good weekend of alcohol sales, and was a ton of fun. Great time seeing friends, and look forward to doing it again, hopefully again. And it's pretty sweet that me and Adam both were luckily champions. That may never happen again, because you never know how often that shit happens. At least might not happen for me.
Not only champions, but I believe Adam won Mechanic of the Year. Is that correct, Adam?
I think Adam has
That is true. I did win the year. Total surprise by that.
It's got to be pretty awesome for sure. It's one thing to go there and
leave it to me to screw. Sorry, guys.
No, your engines ran great. Your internet sucks.
Yeah,
no,
internet not so great, but the guy can build an engine for sure.
Yeah.
Chase, speak to the number of mini rod hooks for next season that were announced at the banquet. I know Adam's a really big fan. Adam was hoping for a number closer to 30. He was saying before he got cut off there, but the number fell a little bit shy of 30. What is it? 20 something?
Well, I think nothing's official. But they do hand out sheets of paper that have numbers on them. So that's your reference point. The sheet of paper that I saw, I didn't have one in my hand, I think had 25 on it, which 4 of those are the Florida swing, the Grand National Southern Swing that we've talked about in this podcast, which are really 3 months before the regular season starts typically. So that's a different.
Just to be clear, there's going to be Grand National pulling in Florida, but it's not just going to be invite only. The actual Grand National points series begins in Florida for 4 classes, correct?
It does for the light modified mini rods, 4-1 limited pro, new class of Grand National pulling, super stock diesel 4-wheel drives. They will be kicking their points chase off in Florida in March. At 2 different venues back-to-back weeks. So back to your question of 4 hooks, if you remove those 4, which I guess they're still hooks, but they're 3 months before, 2.5, 3 months before the regular season normally starts, you're at 21 hooks. Last year, I think we had 17 or 18. And from what I've understood, there's going to be 2 to 3 more taken off the schedule. I think some of those conversations are still happening. So needless to say, the number of hooks for the mini rod class is a bit of a revolving door right now, but from my understanding and what I'm hearing, it's not going to be quite 25.
So without question, whoever is in the running for those classes for the points series, they will all be going to Florida if you want to even have a shot at getting that points championship.
That is correct. And the competitors that competed last year on the circuit were all aware of this and giving feedback. Would you go for this if this happened? There was a couple other classes that I think were going to be options that they didn't vouch for it or said we don't want to do that, and that's obviously just on to the next one type scenario.
Sure.
The 4-1s were not a Grand National class, so I guess you can say those guys were told they're going to Florida, but everyone else I think was pretty well aware from my understanding.
So with that being said, because that's the start of a point series, can anyone go to those events that has a Grand National license and has an intention of competing for a points championship?
I think anyone can go that under any, I guess you can go as a per hook, as a license, as a regional license. Like You show up, you're pulling just like any other Grand National hook. So nothing's different than that. It's just a couple months earlier, and the weather in March is pretty nice, and the concept of pulling a circuit in March is different. So that's going to be a bit of adjustment, but I think it's also pretty exciting. From my feedback, I hear the numbers will be pretty good for what that time of year is.
Sure. Well, speaking of banquet activity and warmer weather down in Florida, I heard it was so warm down in Florida that one member of the Richardson camp even chose to go shirtless at the banquet, albeit they were still wearing a tie. Chase, can you speak to that activity and what went on there? Everybody saw quite a few pictures on Facebook, and I feel like we need some background and clarity on that.
Yeah, I've never spent 2 days of my life talking about a shirtless man as much as I have the last or earlier part of this week. We have a guy that pulls with us named Donald, who you may have seen, if you follow the UD Motorsports pulling page, that's a page that where UD Motorsports, they have a page and have become active on social media this past year. Adam has said it before. There's a cast of characters that we hang out and run with, but they're all our friends. And Donald works for us and prefers his wardrobes to be light, to call it lightly. And he made the decision to go to the banquet with no shirt on and a tie. My dad was not there. I was coming in from out of town. Was kind of a late arrival while the wardrobe decisions were made, and I got a text from Greg Randall, executive director of NTPA, that said something along the context of it. Hi, Chase. I'm sorry to send this message, but Donald is here with no shirt on, and it's quite the scene. Can you please talk to him to tell him to put some clothes on?
Well, I feel like you really got to set the scene here. So the banquet, traditionally as tractor pullers, a lot of us, may not be the most formally dressed, but on the evening of the banquet, people are in suits and ties, the girls in, dresses of sorts. I mean, everybody is really about, is it fair to say, Chase, this is as dressed up
they're
as
dressed
everybody?
To the nine. Is it
Yes.
dressed to the nines? That's the comment, right?
This is as dressed up as everybody will see each other all year long, no question.
Let's as dressed up as you'll see Donald. It's just
and I mean he did have a tie on, so you can only imagine, the powers that be. Poor Greg Randall having to text Chase and just say, Chase, there's a gentleman here in your team without a shirt on. If you could get him to put one on, that would be great. And did he eventually put a shirt on, Chase?
Yeah, there's probably a more graphic way that Donald would explain his wardrobe. And whenever the request was given for me to, hey, change your clothes, in a professional way to answer that, he says, I don't care what people think, but he said it a lot more differently than that. But yes, when I got there, I think they were the first class had gone across the stage or so forth. And I had directed him to go put some clothes on. I'm not laughing at him. I'm just laughing at the situation. And there was a public apology given. I apologize on stage. You can see Donald getting instigated by the Kester family there. I think someone just removed his tie. Nobody to blame other than UD Motorsports for this, but he did put his shirt on, and you can see it there. Public apology.
I think it was the Kester family that was giving him a shirt.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Well, no, there's no one to blame but UD Motorsports on this, but public apology given. Really sorry. But Donald did tell me when I got to the shop on Monday that he took more pictures than he ever took in his life at that banquet. So
yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. So sorry again. Unacceptable.
Totally acceptable.
Hopefully it doesn't happen again. I've spent like 2 days, not 2 days. I've spent a good part of 2 days of my life answering questions to why a guy was at a banquet with no shirt on, with the tie on. So when that may not happen again in the rest of my life.
Well, the last time he put on a suit, he maybe set the world on fire for another reason.
Yeah. Well, that was a couple years ago.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, so I love Donald. He's a funny guy.
At one point in time, Donald bought PPL, or so a lot of people thought.
Allegedly, I don't know if we can quite confirm that.
Well, that was before this podcast was around, but I guess what was that, 3 years ago when Lucas Oil was leaving Pro Pulling League, and there was a lot of unknowns in the world, and there was a circle of people that like to crop pictures in, and somehow or another there was a picture cropped where Adam or not Adam, but Donald was the new owner of PPL.
It was me that did it.
Oh, I can't remember who did it, but yeah. Maybe we can pull that picture up back, and it's on Adam's Facebook page, just as a reminder. But
well, we're on a tight time crunch here, so I hate to interrupt you, Chase, but I heard in addition to Donald being shirtless, there was also a potential Billy Beers bar fight. If you guys could set the scene on that. Now, I have not heard this story. I was notified of this moments before we went on the air, and I don't know if I'm supposed to bring it up or not, but I have to hear the details of what went down on this. Set the scene for me if you can, Adam.
Well, I think it was probably a little bit after midnight, and the pullers, the hotel bar decided they wanted to close at like I don't know, 11 o'clock. Well,
Ooh,
for
that's a
anybody that doesn't
bad deal.
know, the banquet, Tyler, like they had a happy hour before the banquet, and they have a couple bars set up out there. You can get drinks and whatnot. So
Of course.
as the banquet's about to start, I go up, get me another drink, and I go to sit at the table. Pullers, we carry our own when it comes to the booze, and everything's going pretty well. And then about 5 minutes into this banquet, we see the bars leaving, like rolling out of the room. And we're like, what's going on here? Everybody was kind of
I
questioning.
saw a guy with no shirt
what
on and said we
what
got
was
to cut
going
this
on.
off.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Yeah, probably. But so the bars disappeared, so everybody was getting pretty thirsty. Banquet went on pretty well, and after that, about the time it got over, the hotel bar was basically closing. So everybody kind of go to the room, gets changed. We go across the parking lot, kind of to the Miller's Ale House, I think, and I sit down at the table there, and there's a group of pullers, probably 30. Give or take. And this is kind of like an oval shaped bar or long rectangular shaped bar. And the pullers were sitting off to the left-hand side of it. And we had, I don't know, 4 or 5 tables there, and they're kind of about 4 people per. And then, if you kind of do the math, you realize that 30 people don't add up to that many tables. So in between the little walkway between the tables and the bar, there's people. And apparently one of the patrons of the bar got bumped into a few too many times.
Oh.
I guess what I had witnessed, I saw a profab guy accidentally bump in, and this guy kind of popped off and said, "Hey, I've about had enough, quit running into me, whatnot." I had my back to the situation, and apparently he got bumped one more time. And it turned into a bunch of yelling and screaming. And I turn around, and there's a pile of people on the ground. And Chase left the table that he was sitting at with me and dove right into that pile, and kind of started pulling people out. And one of the guys came out, and I kind of pulled him back away, and was asking, what's going on? What's your problem? As he's screaming in my face about, I told him 4 times. Quit bumping into me. And there was still another guy on the ground. The guy's neck was a little bit.
Come up from the ashes.
Yeah. The guy that was screaming at me, I noticed his neck was pretty red about right here, and yelling and screaming. And I guess as the pile, people started, like the scrum, I guess you would say, people started coming off the pile. We noticed that one Billy Beers was at the bottom of that pile. And I felt sorry for the guy at the bar, because he was thinking, I don't know, he bumped into this guy. It was pissing him off. He just didn't realize that there was 40 other people at that bar that were with the guy.
Yeah.
So needless to say,
I call one guy that was being an asshole that wanted to pop off and went to the ground, and then he got removed from the situation. So
I'm not gonna lie, Chase.
If he knew that
I was investigating the situation there, and guys are throwing stuff. Like, it was just a lot of commotion, and this guy's up there, and he kept kind of going back at the pile. And you got to watch out fighting these days. Just so you know, I mean, you don't know what people have, knives, guns, whatever on you. I mean, we'd like to think we live in a silver world here, but let's just face it, nobody fights fair. So I didn't want to instigate anything with this fellow, but I was about to put a sleeper hold on his ass if he tried to do anything. He was about the right height for me to get that arm in there and lock him down. And I've taken 1 or 2 people out of a bar before. He was going to be the next on the list, but he finally calmed down a little bit. So
I'm a lover, not a
Chase
fighter.
comes back and
break it up.
Chase comes back to the table. He's all jacked. He takes off his coat, and he's like, "I needed that.
Well, there was no punches swung on my behalf. I like to handle things amicably. Is that how you say it? That when you see blue bears on the ground, you got to fucking go.
Yeah.
Like if he's down, you got to go. And we went, and Billy Beers got up. Billy Beers was the last man in the bar. Those guys got thrown out. Billy Beers was there drinking.
Do you want to mention the phrase that Billy threw at this guy, or do we just need to leave
I don't
that
want to
be?
do that because it's don't fuck with Billy Beers. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah. Don't fuck with Billy Beers, like the T-shirt says.
A lot of
And
T-shirts
then there should be an
online.
add-on, or his friends.
Yeah. Don't fuck with Billy Beers. That was an ultimate branding moment for him. So luckily nobody was hurt. I did not swing a punch. Those guys were escorted at the property. Puller survived. So more of the story, you want to jack up one puller, there's about 40 of them behind them there that you might have to deal with, right?
Yep.
I don't care who you are.
Yep.
That's a pretty fair way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, most of our listeners are probably not here to
They're not
break
here for us.
down.
We need to quit talking. Quit talking. Just
Yeah,
move
they're
on.
they're probably not here to hear about Donald's wardrobe or to hear about Billy Beers getting into a fight. They're probably here for the main guest of the show, who had a pulling career so well decorated that Tom Cruise even made a movie series about him. And gentlemen, it is the pilot of the tractor Mission Impossible, Mr. Tim Engler, joining us this evening on the No Practice Podcast. Tim, how are we doing this evening, sir?
Doing pretty good. Listen to you guys, I'm gonna have a hard time keeping up.
No, I don't know about all that. You ever getting any bar fights, Tim?
No, I've been pretty lucky there. I've been in a few fights, but not too many bar fights.
Nothing good happens after midnight, Tim, and that was at 12:05. That whole scene. So always go home before midnight.
I guess I was too busy working.
Yeah, there you go. Tim, you're joining us from your shop there in Princeton, Indiana. The place, obviously, outside of being a Hall of Fame puller, you're Hall of Fame manufacturer and supplier for a lot of the pulling world, specific classes. So, is that the same shop you've always been in? There, we're meeting, doing this podcast from, or
Pretty much. I moved over here in '82 and been in this location. Just added on a few times, but other than that, this is pretty much where it started. I had tractors before this, back whenever I was younger, but this is where we basically have built most of them.
So all those trophies in the background there, Tim, those are all from tractor pulling, or some of those from sprint cars as well?
Well, the ones there in the back that you're looking at, those are all tractor trophies. There's not as big as sprint car trophies, but there's a few of them too. We did get to win a few of those.
So a lot of people that don't know, you ran sprint cars as well, and you still play with sprint cars, much like you do pulling tractors. I guess I should stop and say, take it back. Tell us how you even got into tractor pulling, your first ride down the track, and we'll build from there.
Well, I'll kind of tell you a quick story. Some people's heard it, some haven't. I wanted to race when I was a little kid, and I was like fourth grade, and my dad kind of liked racing. My mom wasn't too fond of it. So anyway, I saved my money and I bought me a used racing go-kart, and I got to race it one time and got third place. Thought I did pretty good, and my mom freaked out. She said, I can't have my kid getting killed in a race car or getting hurt for life. So she said, no more of that. So anyway, that kind of broke my heart. And a lot of you guys on the podcast tonight might remember a guy by the name of Tim Kissel. He and I went to school together, and his dad and Tim took me to Louisville many years ago, and I seen the tractor pull at Louisville. Of course, back in the early 70s, there was only one engine on a modified pulling tractor back in that day, so it wasn't quite as crazy as it is, now, or like it was when we quit. But that kind of gave me the bug, and I came home and I said something to my parents about, well, would you get mad if I built me a tractor? So that was kind of okay. And that's kind of how it all started. And basically was a Super M tractor. We took the engine out of and put a 383 Chrysler engine in it, and that was the start. And I got pretty lucky right out of the box down close to Adam's house in New Harmony. Was the first place I ever pulled, and I think I got second or third place. I think one of the two there the first time, and it kind of went downhill from there. It wasn't very good after that. So it was kind of a big learning curve.
What year was it when you brought that first pulling tractor out, Tim?
that would have been 1971. 1971.
So where you're from there in that part of Indiana, and obviously Adam's one of my closest friends, believe it or not, if you watch this podcast. We normally don't act like we act like each other, but is it safe to say that area where you are, the southwestern part of Indiana, that's a pretty big hotbed for pulling? Is it all like, would you agree with that statement? And if so, how far like does that area go like for you, in your mind, for just tractor pulling?
Well, I thought it was pretty big back in the day, and in our time, there was lots of state pulls in Indiana, New Harmony, Evansville, Princeton, right here. About every county fair had a tractor pull back in the day, and it was all over the whole state. And of course, Illinois was probably one of the best state associations that you could go to, because back in that era they had the lottery, and they paid about double over in Illinois what we paid in Indiana or Kentucky. So it was pretty good, but there was a lot of pulls down in this area.
Very nice. So you had to get rid of the go-kart. You get the pulling tractor. You put the 383 Chrysler into it. Just to set the scene of how much labor went into those tractors, I mean, what do you think? Did you have 200 hours into that pulling tractor, 300 hours?
It's hard to say. Back in that time, you didn't think much about the time. You just did whatever it took. But I will tell you that I do remember taking a factory M flywheel. The guys today would freak out, but we actually converted the original M flywheel. We turned 90 pounds of cast metal out of that flywheel and adapted it to a 383 Chrysler engine to where you could still use a stock M starter and start it. But today, of course, you wouldn't do nothing like that safety-wise, but the engines were kind of power that you do today.
Probably wouldn't pass. So how many years did you run that tractor for?
That was just basically 1 year. And then we built another one after that. And a lot of people know George Everett. There was a couple years in there that I really, really struggled. There was 1 year that I broke 17 straight times down the track. Never drove the tractor off the track one time.
Ooh.
And that's when you find out how bad you really want to pull. And I learned a lot of what not to do. And we figured out how to double gear transmissions and make shafts better material and do this and do that. But eventually it got back to where the axles wouldn't hold the power. And in a process of trying to learn how to build engines, I went to a 392 Hemi, and we got it to where we could get our engines to stay together, but then we couldn't get the rear ends to stay together. And then finally we built a tractor where we took a 4020 John Deere rear end and cut the transmission off, took a pinion that, as you guys that have worked on 4020s know, the pinion's about 22 inches long, and cut it off about 6 inches long and made it just so you could put a yoke right on it. And we eliminated all of our rear end problems. That was one of the first planetary type rear ends that was built back in the day. And that's kind of when we started doing better and winning some state pulls, and won a couple of Hoosier state titles, and went over in Illinois and Kentucky and won a lot of that stuff. And that's kind of when it all started taking off, but we still wasn't near close to running on a national level yet.
Yeah, at that point, how much power do you think?
I'm sorry, Tyler.
My bad. How much power do you think that first 392 had in that first tractor?
Well, we didn't have dynos back then like we do today. It'd be, if I had to guess, I'd say it made around 900 horsepower probably. And then we just two engines, and we just had 671 blowers back in the day. And you guys will laugh today because there was no strips in them. It was just the rotors, and you didn't have to worry about restripping the blowers. You just had to put new rotors in them and make them better. But
I'm kind of jealous of that. I hate restripping blowers, Tim. So
I couldn't blame you there. But no, that's definitely kind of how it all started. And that was back in the day when you kind of had to, it was hard you had to make everything pretty much from scratch.
Sure. Sorry, Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, so speaking of making things from scratch, so kind of explain to us, you talked about making all this stuff. Your family was in, I think your dad had a tool and die shop, right? So can you kind of take us through like the machining or through the the machine shop side of it and how you were able to make some of these parts?
Well, I was very lucky. My dad didn't actually have a shop. He worked for a company called Potter and Brumfield, which was based right here in Princeton, Indiana. And my dad was a progressive die maker. And he'd let me go out there on Saturday mornings and hang out. And that's kind of where I got the bug to start doing machine work and different things. But without his help and a lot of guidance and teaching from him, why I probably wouldn't be where I'm at today. But that's kind of how I got the bug and got going.
So you're going
so
through
when you started in the machine in the machine shop business, you were making tool and die stuff. You were making
yes
stuff.
Yes, actually, right out of high school,
die making.
I didn't go. Yeah, when I got out of high school, I actually took a tool and die mold making apprenticeship at a shop, and I worked 70 hours a week, guys. And back in that day, I got $1.25 an hour. I was working on a farm making $3.50 an hour and went to work as an apprentice and took a big pay cut and was working about 70 hours a week, take home $100. So it was, you really had to work hard at it. I worked there at that place until I actually got to be foreman. And in that period of time, I'd built some other tractors, and I'd got out on the, went to Bowling Green many years back, and I got my butt kicked up there, and we'd been winning a lot in Indiana, Illinois, and Kentucky. And I realized if I was ever going to be able to be competitive on a national level, I had to figure out how to make some more money. So I quit working where I was at. I started my shop from scratch in 1980 in a garage built out of used concrete blocks behind my parents' house. And that's where it all started. And but when I started my business, I basically did a little bit of everything. We did some die work, but mainly electronic molds, and eventually got into the medical business doing medical molds. Most of the parts you could hold in one hand, very, very small, intricate parts. You guys, I'm sure, have been around micro switches and relays and parts like that, but most of the parts were very tedious, plus or minus half a thousandths to a thousandths of an inch on the molded parts. So it was real tedious stuff, but it was kind of cool. I did that for 20 years, and then it all started going across the pond, so to speak, to China and other countries. And I never thought that the medical company I was working for at that time they had 12 Lear jets. When I quit in 2000, and last couple molds I built for them, they begged me to do, and I said I couldn't do it because basically they were charging 30 cents on the dollar what it would cost here in the States to build. And I think I paid $12,000 out of my pocket to finish the last two mold jobs we built for that medical company. And they told me they'd make it up to us, and they ended up giving me an old mold press that I gave to the high school to learn on and kind of make tools on it in school out here. So other than that, I kind of got in. I'd always been, after I quit pulling in 91, and basically got into the sprint car racing, and I've been very lucky to take two hobbies and turn them into businesses. Now we build the tractors. Now we build fuel injection for the race cars, and do a lot of dyno work, chassis dyno work, engine dyno work, and now we build our own midget motors. One thing I got to say for sure, before we get too deep into this program, I want to congratulate you guys, first of all, on your titles. I was super happy to see Adam. He knows he come here to work many years ago, and we got to help teach him how to build some of them Aries engines that are now his engines that he built down there, that they've took many, many steps better than what we had back in the day. But if I was going to build a new tractor today, there wouldn't be no question that'd be the engine I'd use. But you guys having
first
a great
one
year.
First one I ever
Tim,
built
that
was at your shop.
So Tim, what kind of employee was Adam for you? You got to tell us some. Do you have any bad stories about Adam you can share?
Oh my! I don't want to throw him under the bus too bad, but no, he was a pretty good guy. Every now and then, though, I'd have to find him because he'd be making a tractor part over there on the side, And I told him, I said, now once in a while you got to work on some of the shop stuff so we can make afford to pay you. But no, he was really, he wanted to learn. He wanted to learn, and like I said, it makes an old guy like me really, really proud to see Adam do what he's done in the engine business as well as in the pulling business and take it. Adam knows we actually got to build. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, I was getting older, but we built your first tractor for you personally right here at the shop, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I told him earlier when we were all talking, I was pretty sure that your dad's was the first true mini rod that we'd ever built other than the big tractors.
Yeah, you'd actually helped Denny Horse design some of his, and I think he built him his self, but
Yes.
my dad's was the first ever built.
Yes, yeah. Denny, he actually kind of took the plans and did all of his own work. But he's another great friend we've had for years. But anyhow, I wanted to talk about that a little bit because I was really super proud of what you've done, Adam, and all you guys. Even though I don't get to very many pulls, I still watch you guys a bunch. I'm proud of you. Proud to see you young guys keep it going and carry it on.
That means a lot, you saying that, Tim.
I got to say it's pretty neat. I run good, and I get a text from Tim saying, "Hey, really good job. We've been keeping up with you. We're watching. That's pretty awesome for me." So I think you taught me everything I know. So I appreciate it.
I don't know about that. I just taught you a few things not to do.
Right.
So Tim, it's you took us through a little bit of the background of your tool and die business. When did it become a full-blown motorsports business for you? Like around what time? And I'm sure you were doing little projects here and there while doing everything else, but like when was it like strictly a motorsports operation?
Very good question. So basically, when I quit tractor pulling in '91 and started into the sprint car racing, I had bought 3 new sets of cylinder heads, and they weren't cheap. Back in 1992, they were about $6,000 a set with no rocker arms, and they were very good heads. And I picked those cylinder heads up, wrote that $18,000 check, and it was for a company up here in Washington, Indiana. It's now called One Way. It was Jones Engineering back in the day, and it did quality work. And I picked those heads up, and I said, "How much are these heads going to help my engines?" And they just kind of looked down at the ground and didn't want to talk to me. And I said, "Now look, guys, we got to communicate." So anyway, they took me in there and they said, "Don't mean it wrong, but you don't understand natural aspirated engines, because we all work around superchargers and turbochargers, whether it's your blower motors or whether it's diesels or whatever." And that's what I'd been around. And I said, "Well, I'm not an idiot. Maybe you ought to educate me a little bit." So we went in there and took the stiff valve spring off, put a test spring on it, put it on a flow bench and flowed it. And back in that era, I think it flowed 359 CFM. And they basically took the putty around there. You usually clay up a radius port when you do that. So they took that on it. It was beautiful, ported down through there and put the stack on it, and it lost 40 CFM. And I said, "You guys are telling me we're going to bolt a choke on top of that nice new head?" And he looked at me like I was like a brain surgeon or something. He said, "Well, it didn't take you long to figure that out." And I said, "Well, it doesn't take a brain surgeon to see that." I said, "Why don't we have a better injector?" And then they told me, they said, "Well, that's the problem. We basically nobody makes one." The cylinder head technology was going on a 45-degree uphill slant at that time, and the fuel injection was on a level playing field. There wasn't much competition, and it wasn't kind of keeping up with the quality of the heads and how good people were making the ports. So that's whenever I shot my mouth off and I said, "Well, if I can build a medical mold, I can build a fuel injector." So that's you guys will kind of get a kick out of this story. The very first one that I built, they told me that day, they said, "Come in here if you're serious about this." And they showed me a little V4 scat engine. I don't know if you guys have ever seen one, but it was a little midget engine that's built, but it was just half of V8. looked like half of a small block V8. And they said, this is the same port as your new heads have. Build the injector for this, and if it works on this, it'll be half the work. And if it makes power, then you can go home and build yourself one for your V8. And long story short, we built that first one. It took a couple months to build the first one, get it totally done. Once we got that done, I put it on the engine and put it on the dyno, and it made 27 more horsepower. And at the time, that was a big, big deal for a 4-cylinder naturally aspirated engine. I think it was one of the first engines they'd had to break 300 horsepower. So then we came home and we started building injectors for our 410s. And I can honestly tell you guys, it was like burning $100 bills, and I'm talking stacks of them. And it was 10 years to get the fuel injection business to pay its way. So that was 92. So we quit building molds in 2000. So basically it was pretty thin around Engler machine for about 2 or 3, 4 years there, trying to get the fuel injection business going. We'd already started building tractors. We had some of the good modified pullers in years past, Bruce Hutcherson, John Heilman, Fred Freeman, one of my best friends that I've had for many years. And he and I used to go all over the country, and Fred and I still talk once in a while, but he's probably one of the few guys. I built him a tractor, and he took care of my truck and trailer, and took care. We did traded work out for years, and he's still a great friend today. But there's not too many guys like that you can lean on. But that's one of the best things about the whole pulling deal is, just like you guys at the bar fight, one guy gets in the middle of it, everybody's there to back you up. So that's what it's all about, guys. And when I got into the racing deal, it's kind of the same way, although there's probably more fights at the racetrack than what you guys would ever see at the tractor pulls. But this day and age, you can't hit these young kids because they're too young or get put in jail. But back when I started, you had to man up and kind of be your own guy, because when I started, I was a little too old to start into the sprint cars when I got into it. But it was definitely a thrill, and I'd probably still try to do it today if I didn't have this pacemaker in my chest.
How did that compare, running a sprint car compared to, driving the old 7-engine tractor?
Well, I tell you what, the funniest thing, Adam will know, we got a racetrack down here at Hobstadt, Indiana called Tri-State Speedway, just 15 minutes down the road. And the dirt on that track was some of the best around. It'd be like going to, you guys probably never pulled at Inwood, Ontario, Canada, but if you ever did, or your parents, I'm sure, probably had. But anyway, it was black gumbo type dirt, and Bowling Green's tough, but it'd be like Bowling Green on steroids. And we'd pull the front ends on them sprint cars, and I felt comfortable with the front wheels in the air, and my rear bumper would about be dragging the dirt. And people say, "How you drive that thing on the back wheels?" I said, "Hell, that's what I was used to." I said, but I wasn't used to have to turn left at the end of the straightaway. But all in all, I mean, it was a big change to go from from pulling and jumping off that 10,000 horsepower back in the day and getting on when we started into sprint cars, they were 750 horsepower out of a small block 410, and today they're over 900. But the neat thing is kind of like your show. There's in pulling, there's no practice, there's no test runs, there's no qualifying, there's no hot laps, there's no heat races. It's one and done, or you better do it right the first time or you don't get another chance. But the big thing, that was the hardest part to quit and start into the sprint cars, was I'd spent all the years learning the different dirt all over the world, all over the United States. And big change from going to Vermont and running up there in that sandy stuff to going out in Iowa and running in the black dirt. And, you go to Kentucky or Georgia or Tennessee and you get into the redder dirt, and going to Carolinas over there's a lot of red sandy dirt. And then you go to Florida and you go to Naples, Florida. We pulled in Naples, Florida, in that pure sand. And you really, that was the hardest thing to quit, guys, is just all the many years that it took to learn the different applications of the dirt. And then not only that, but back in our time, there was quite a bit of difference in the sleds. Today, you're pretty blessed that you don't have to have 8 or 10 different types of pulling sleds, because some of them you really had to get after it hard and get it rolling fast. And some of them you had to kind of be a little easier on the throttle and kind of roll it out. But that was one of the hardest things to quit and go from being a winner, or so to speak, in the pulling world to the bottom of the pile in the sprint car world. But it was, I always liked the challenge, and it was definitely a challenge, but it was a thrill. And it's, people might not think 750 or 800 or 900 horsepower is a lot, but when you had a car that only weighed 1,200 pounds back in the day, it was pretty good ride.
Yeah, that's a pretty decent horsepower to weight ratio for sure. How did you enjoy the aspect, of being able to practice and having, heat races and stuff, or did it feel more so like you were, placing $150 bets on black versus letting it all ride on black on one spin? Did it seem like there was less at chance in a 15-second interval, or was that a pro or a con for you that, there was that much seat time involved?
Well, when you got to be, like I said, I was in my late 30s when I started, so you needed all the seat time you could get. I always said, hey, guys, knew Steve, the name Steve Kinzer was one of the best there ever was and is to this day. And, if I went and ran every race there was, I'd never get the seat time that he had, guys that started a lot younger had. So you had to go as much as you could, as often as you could, to try to learn as fast as you could, because Father Time is not on your side when you're starting later in life. So it was definitely, if I hadn't been able to practice, hot lap qualify, run the heat races, I actually had Tammy video me, and I had to learn when the race car was too tight, and you'd shake it loose, and you had to learn when it was too tight and when it was not. And that was a lot of things to learn, a lot different. There's so many in pulling. Your rear end is solid in your chassis pretty much. There's no shocks, there's no torsion bars, there's no springs, you don't run stagger on your back tires. There's so many different things. You got 60 different sets of gears that you run for different size racetracks. So there was many variables that you had to learn. And today the shocks, you got shock adjusters on there to where you can adjust the shock, whether it's got rebound or compression, and all that has a big bearing on how it is today in the racing world.
Tim, so based on that, Tim, do you think it's harder to set up a four-wheel drive pulling truck than an unlimited pulling tractor because of the suspension aspect, or would you not go quite that far?
Well, now you're hitting me in an area that I never did do. I never did run a four-wheel drive. I ran lots of two-wheel drive stuff when LD Nation and I ran together some, and I never did get to run a four-wheel drive, but I built quite a few four-wheel drives for guys, and some of ours ran really well. The Yankee Blue truck that sit for a couple of years came back, I think this past year or last year.
Oh yeah.
That was one of our trucks that we were really proud of, and I know he had, I think, won the title and then let it sit for a couple, 3 years and came back and was still pretty strong.
It was like 15 years.
Yeah, Mr. Scott Phillips, yeah.
Yeah, Scott. And, that was one of our trucks that we were really proud of that we built. And of course, I always say this is a part that people don't realize is we try to build every one of them we build, like every new one, like the one I got sitting behind me here is, we got 3 new ones here right now, and every one we build, we try to think of something to make them a little bit better, but without all the good pullers and everybody studying things, that's what really makes the winner and makes us look good today. It's no different than what you guys do every day and sitting there studying films, and that's the best thing you can do. Sit there and study those videotapes and watch the tires, watch the front end, watch how much everything's moving around, watch your tires, whether they're wrinkling or not. And there's many things you can learn just watching them videos. Same way with the race cars. If Tammy hadn't videoed me and I could see all the stupid driving wise to change why I'd never got better. But thank God we finally got to where we could make most of the outlaw shows. We got to make one of the 100,000 to win races at Eldora, and that was a good thrill. And you can also get. I broke my back in a sprint car, my bottom 3 vertebrae, so it can bite you. They're not easy on you. That's one good thing about pulling. You don't have to worry about too much losing the whole thing in one shot.
Unless you're Tyler.
Yeah.
Tim, when was your last year you pulled your own operation, like in terms of a competitor?
I think the very last year that I pulled was 1990, and then I pulled a little bit in 91, and then sold the tractor, the 7-engine tractor.
So you got out of pulling at a pretty young age. Have you ever considered at any point ever getting back in, or, there's some guys, and you're still a young man. I'm not going to ask you your age, but there's guys that are your age out here still competing at a high level. Have you ever considered ever jumping back in and trying it out, or pulling it on for fun? I know you're a workaholic, but is that something that's ever crossed your mind?
Oh, I don't know. I had to quit racing because I had to have a pacemaker put in 07. So I haven't raced for a long time. And I've thought about it a time or two, but I'll be honest with you guys, it seems like we're always so busy, and like we built a little midget engine from scratch right now that I've got pretty deep, and I think we built we're working on our 13th one right now. We built them all out of a solid chunk of aluminum, and they're pretty cool, but we're going up against Toyota, and you got to go against all the big company stuff, but we basically are doing that out of our pockets. So I spent a lot of money on that project, and if I wasn't doing that, or if one of my family members wanted to build a pulling tractor or truck or something, or I'm not going to say I would never do it, because once it's in your blood, it's always in your blood. But I would say right now, I probably wouldn't do it. I'd probably leave it to you young guys to help make us still look good when we build chassis.
So
needless to say, you're going to be coming back one day, Tim.
You never know. You never say never.
Tim, we got to ask, is Purser's 8-engine tractor real?
It's real. It's real. I was just showing the guys here a while ago a video that we did. It's not ran yet. I think Wayne's wanting to bring it up and have us put hydraulic steering on it because the front axle is so heavy. But it is real. Every gearbox is brand new on that thing pretty much, and that thing is as real can be. And I really worry whether or not, I told him, I said, we don't need to get crazy now when we run this thing. We got to make sure we don't rip the tires off.
Now, Tim, not to interrupt you, but I like how we're talking about an 8-engine pulling tractor. And you say, now, Wayne, we don't want to get crazy. Like, we haven't passed crazy a couple miles back, the fact that we've got 8 engines on this thing. So you can confirm it is real. I feel like if you were to ever hop in the seat, Tim, that would be the unit to hop back in the seat, don't you think?
Absolutely. I told him whenever he was here, I said, you want me to run that thing for you? After he said, oh, no. He said, I'll be fine. He jumped up on it. His eyes got big after he got in the seat, looked down over all them motors. He said, this is pretty amazing. I said, yes, it is.
Do you think that rear engine's going to hold up, Tim?
It's going to be a great test. I think probably the closest power thing to that we did years back was probably whenever and I know more of you guys got screw blowers now, but I mean, when Boyd's ran that tractor with the screw blowers, the 4 engines, I think those engines were making somewhere around 3,600 horsepower a piece. So that's 14,000. And of course, Wayne, he says he's not going to pump them up too much. I said, no, they don't need to be on but fast idle. I said, you can take some timing out of it. And I said, just kind of ease into the throttle. But I worry more about the tires than anything. I really think that, but we didn't weigh it because we never filled it totally full of fuel. And But I mean, it was totally together. I mean, I can send you guys a video of it, but I don't want to do anything without his permission. But
Yeah,
No.
of course.
We've had him on here. We saw everything, and I don't. As far as Wayne, I don't think he's going to have any competitors anytime soon. He's the monster truck of pulling, the Bigfoot. I can't wait to see that thing run. We're working on a few events. He may bring it and do some exhibition run, or they're always exhibition runs. So it'll be exciting to see.
Yep. No, I would see it run too.
What did the conversation sound like when he first approached you to make that? Because I guess, once again, I should take a step back. I feel like this probably started with your Wayne Purser, Adam Bauer motor combinations, where traditionally on a 5-engine tractor, you would have the two side by side, 2 rows of that, and a fifth one kind of behind in the center, maybe offset, to try to make up for torque steer. But then all of a sudden, these guys were showing up with the fifth engine plopped in between the front 4, and I feel like that was the motivation and the gears turning. So where did the fifth engine in between the front 4 start, Tim?
Well, that we were the first one to do that, and Wayne was struggling, trying to run 5 engines with the engine in the back, and couldn't keep the front end down. He was lowering the hitch an inch and a half, trying to keep the front end on the ground. And I said, you need to bring that thing down here. We're going to turn that front motor around. We're going to put it right up there in the front, put it right between them front 2 motors. And he said, oh, it won't fit in there. I said, yeah, it will. I said, it don't if you don't ever try. So anyway, we did that. If you guys really remember, we did that in about 10 days' time from when he pulled it with 5 one way. And then I can't remember whether he went to Fort Recovery or Bowling Green.
Fort Recovery, yeah. It's Fort Recovery.
Yeah. And it by putting that up there, it gave us the front end weight that we needed to hold the front end down. And then you could get serious with it, and you didn't have to go crazy throttle wise or even horsepower wise to lean on the motor so hard like you do when you have to run 4 with bigger blowers. But so I mean, I really think if Wayne really wanted to get serious, and he's so busy with his business, and if I was a little bit younger and didn't have so many things going with the midget engine thing and the midget cars, I'd probably jump in there and go help him with that, because I really feel like that tractor is very capable.
So it was Wayne that did it first, and Adam Bauer followed shortly after.
Yes.
Okay. And
yes.
Bauer runs all of your gearboxes and everything too. So he pretty much said, Wayne, that's a pretty hot setup. I'd like that for myself. Is that how that went?
Well, he doesn't run all of our gearboxes. I think he might still have some of the cross boxes, but I don't know whether Vaughn built that front box or not, or SCS built it, or who built it, Profab. But the front one, I don't know for sure who built it, but it was basically very similar to what we did for Wayne.
Okay. Gotcha. So anyway, that's where the 5 started, and then the gears probably started turning in Wayne's head, and he thought, well, if there was 4 up here, now we got 5, we got room for 2 more, and then we got another set of 4 here in the back. Well, by God, we can put a 5th one right there. What did that conversation sound like when he approached you with this concept?
He actually took one of the other tractors, and he had he hung it in his garage. He had another set of where there were 6 of them on there crossways. And then he said, I want you to build me an 8-engine tractor. And he had that top motor up in the back, just kind of hanging there. And he sent me a picture, and I was like, oh my God. Anyway, I tried to put him off on it quite a while. So, I mean, he was pretty dead set on doing it. So I said, all right, we're going to do it. And he kind of waited on the list till his turn and was pretty patient. And I think now we're just going to get it back up here to finish it. So he'll go try it out for you.
As far as you know, will that be the only pulling tractor that's had more engines on it than yours? More blown engines, I should say?
Supercharged, yeah.
More blown engines, yes. I think many years ago, Niall Bunnage had a tractor with 8 440 Dodges on it that we built for him many years ago. Yeah.
It's wild. It's quite a
Tim-
creation. I feel like if you're going to climb back in the seat, I'd like to see you in that thing for sure. Is it true that Wayne Purser got his inspiration for his mustache from you as well, Tim? A lot of people have said that.
I've never heard that one. You got me there. I didn't ever hear that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tim, the crossbox design or strategy for a modified tractor for fans. And Tim, we try to explain what crossboxes in some of these languages to fans. So, like Wayne Purser and Adam Bowers, when the engines are facing back to back, is the easiest way to explain it. You were the first one to do that, if I'm not mistaken, right?
We are or were. Yes, sir.
So how in the hell did you come up with that idea? Take us through. So we can make this podcast 7 hours tonight, but we got to do what we can. Like, at what time did you say, I'm going to stick them engines back to back and make that thing into a tractor?
Well, we won our first 2 tractor NTPA national events in Elkhorn, Wisconsin. And we had a Aries tractor, 2 crank to crank, and then 2 kind of on the side forward, where all 4 engines were pointing forward, like most of the common gearboxes that you see today. And we barely could make weight in a 7 modified. And it was so bad at Elkhorn up there to make it in the 7. We drained a 1.5 quart oil out of each motor. We drained 1 gallon of oil out of the rear end. We drained about 2 gallon of oil out of each fuel tank just to make weight. And I'd been working and talking about it. And the very, very, very first one, I have to give credit for this because I talked to Mike Sage. And Mike built the very, very first gearbox out of pieces of steel plates. And we basically ran 1 week at Elkhorn, Wisconsin, went home, worked almost, 60 hours straight, trying to get the frame notched and get those motors on there. And I think Esden Lane, came down here and helped me some that week. And we ended up going to Toma, and when we got to Toma, we were late. Of course, there was no cell phones back in that day, so we tried to call and tell them we were going to be late. We got there, and I remember Dave Banner jumped up on the side of the truck, and he said, "Don't get in no hurry," because he said, "You're not going to make weight because the scales are already heavier than they were at Elkhorn." And I said, "That's all right." I said, "We'll be okay." And he said, "What'd you do?" I said, "We put it on a diet." So anyway, we rolled that out of the trailer, and people's eyes got big. And Ralph walked around there, and he said, "There ain't no motor mounts on the front of them motors." And I said, "Yeah, I know." I said, "There's bars between the heads." He said, "Well, I'm going to get behind the guardrail when you pull." He said, "Them damn motors are going to fall off there." And I said, "Well, we'll see." And it actually pulled the front end up, and it went out the end like an airplane. Ran great. But we had trouble with the original gearbox. The gears inside there, it acted like a corkscrew, and it literally put forward thrust on the mains and spun the thrust bearing in both motors. Ooh. And so needless to say, it was a very, very expensive learning curve trying to figure out how to do that. So then we started kind of redesigning the box, and we put double tapered bearings on the input shafts, and basically that's how they are today. But we built it all out of a solid chunk of aluminum, and there's less than a 1.5 pints of oil is about all there is in those boxes. It's pretty amazing. Some of them that were built clear back in the 80s are still running today.
That's amazing. That's cool that you tell that story. My dad even remembered that story. He knew that you were coming on, and he said, "You make sure you ask him when he came out with the motors facing sideways." He said he didn't do that over the winter. He said the son of a bitch went from one event and showed up at the next event, and they were facing sideways. And somebody even told him, "You ain't going to make weight." And he said, "Oh, I think we'll be all right." And unloaded that son of a bitch completely different than what it was the last time he pulled it.
Well, the best part is that tidbit he said, when I pulled in, they said, "Don't unload, you're not going to make weight." And
yeah.
Tim says, "Oh, I think I'll be okay."
Yep.
Pretty awesome.
That's no different what you guys do today. There's things that you got to try things, to be better. And sometimes you got to think outside the box. And if you don't ever do that, you're never going to get better. And I'm not saying you got to make drastic changes like we did, but we had to do something because it was a problem. And I mean, shit, we didn't, probably one of the neatest things I think we ever did was whenever we had, in 87, we won the 4 titles with the Harry's engines. And in 86, we won 3, the 5, 7, and the unlimited. And then we built the new tractor with the narrow billet heads on all the motors, moved the motors a little farther forward yet, and changed some things, and won all 4 titles there in 87. And then one of the neatest things that probably I ever did to earn respect from my fellow pullers is we built the 5-engine Chevys and put them in the 7 mod class, and that was the first tractor that had titanium bell housings on it. And we literally weighed the shavings out of 1 cylinder and multiplied it times 40 to see how much weight we could take out of the blocks by boring the cylinders out to like 4.440 bore. And we made the flanges for the headers a 16th thinner. We made the tubing about a gauge thinner. We could save 5 pounds a header. I mean, there was so many things that was done on that tractor back in the day. And the very first place we ran the 5-engine and the 7-engine tractor was just right down the road here at Tri-State Speedway. There was a regional NTPA pull at the racetrack 15 miles south of me. And that's when we designed the first cross box to have a 25% overdrive in it so that we could turn the pinion fast enough to run the fast enough gear ratio without having to have an overdrive type transmission. So I probably earned more respect from my fellow pullers when I did that, to take the steel motors and do that, as anything we ever got to do.
So Tim, explain us. So I understand a little bit. I'm sure those Tyler and Adam do. You ran 3 different modified classes in a show. Is that the accurate way to say it?
Believe it or not, we actually ran 4.
4.
So
take us through each class, and then what you had to do the next class, if you don't mind.
Okay, so like with the Aries tractor, or the Minor Brothers Motors type tractor like it be today that Adam builds, we ran 2 crank to crank in a 5,000 pound class. Then we would add 2 more crossways on and run 4 engines in a 7,000 pound class. Then we'd add a 5th engine and run 5 and a 9. And then we would actually, the early days, we would still run 12 open, 12,000 pound unlimited. Then it went from 12 to 11 to 10 to 9. And of course, now it's 8,000 pounds. But we actually ran, and they did this to us a couple times. And I actually did an interview the other day, and I left a couple guys out. I got to make sure that I tell this story right, because when you get old like me, you get forgetful. But you guys know CJ Clell Hare. Why, he used to go with me when he was really, really young. And I was very, very blessed to have him, and his brother would go sometimes. But we went to...
Tim, I'm going to pause this for everyone. CJ and Ross Hare are currently a part of Adam Bauer's team and a big part of what they do, just so everyone knows. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, very, very good. I appreciate that. I forgot them, but we actually ran the 5 modified and the unlimited side by side at the same time. And that was out at Des Moines, Iowa. And we did it one other place. So they asked me, they said, what are you going to do? Because they thought they'd keep us from winning the points if they did that. So we drew our numbers. We got the earliest number in the 5 modified. So I said, well, we're going to run the 5 modified first, and we're going to go straight to the trailer, and we're going to come back and run the unlimited. And so we made a full pull in the 5 modified. And they said, what are you going to do now? I said, we got enough points cushion in the 5 modified. I said, we can stand I think there was 4 or 5 tractors made it out the end. So we were going to get at least 4th or 5th. So then we went to the trailer, and I had CJ, Esden Lane, Brett Berg, Robbie Russell. I'm sure, I can't remember one of those years Billy Iverson worked for me, but anyway, we did it a couple different times, but there was a lot of good fellow pullers, because most of the time it was just Tammy and I, other than the one year that I had Billy. But other than that, to be very honest with you, 18 minutes we went from the 5 modified to the unlimited back on the scales. And we didn't have a big fancy rig like most of you guys got today. We had it looked good. It had Imron paint on it, and it had a hydraulic hoist in it and a nice winch, and we could take them engines off 2 at a time. And but that was back in the day when you had 150-pound wheel weight you had to throw on there, and it was a lot of work. I can tell you that. But we literally run 4 classes.
It's amazing. So
Okay.
I have one question to follow up with this now, and then you can have it. So currently, the current landscape, I know you keep up with pulling now, but the unlimited class is in my lifetime is as strong as it's ever been in terms of competitors and combinations. Like, everyone's really good, and there's a lot of people running. The modified class, it's still stellar. 4 with 8s, 3 or 14s, or actually we need to get to that rule change later. And then the light modified class is just a 2-engine class, which is newer, but it's gaining a lot of traction. It's really a fun class to watch from a fan standpoint, I think. Do you think a guy right now, I guess anybody can do anything, do you think anyone could ever be competitive running all 3 of those classes? Or do you think it's too much, each class and each combination is too different? It'd be hard to stay up front. What's your opinion on that if someone ever wanted to try it?
Well, I still think it could be done. I think you can run every one of them. Now, trust me, you got to work at it. You got to work hard at it. And I remember Ralph Banner told me, he said, "Tim, you can't run every class with the same tractor." And I said, "Okay." I said, "We'll see." So anyway, that's when I always did my best works, when somebody told me that you can't do that. And I still believe that's the same today. I think each and every one of you guys will admit and think the same thing. But you got to, it's kind of like when we won 3 classes in 86. And my goal was, we just missed a 9 modified in 86 by just a few points. And I knew that I could do a few things to be a little better. And it'd be no different today. If I built a new one today, I'd have to get the combination right because the tires are so much different. And, just trying to figure it all out. But I mean, if you want to do it bad enough, guys, you can do it. I believe that. And I feel like that it's, I don't want to say the wrong thing on here and get everybody mad at me, but
you're on here.
Do it.
You want to
Do
say
it, Tim.
No, I'll be honest with you. I do think that since you don't have as many classes as you used to have, I think guys have got a little lazy, a little lax. And I don't mean to be that bad guy, but I'll be honest with you. I'm going to share some numbers with you. Back in the day at Bowling Green, Ohio, we had 62 tractors and 5 modified. Now, I know this year, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I seen either the minis or the 2-wheel drives had some pretty big numbers at Bowling Green, and I was really cool to see that.
55.
They're both above 50, I believe.
Yeah, I'm talking now back in the 85, 86, 87 era of pulling. We would have 60 plus in the 5. You would have high 40s, 48 in the 7 modified. You'd have in the high 30s in the 9 modified. And in the 10, 11, or 12 open, you would have in the high 20s.
Wow.
And you talk about combinations. Why, we built a lot of our competition, but we had Gardner Stone with 4 turbines. You had, we built Gardner Triple Allison with twin turbos, fuel injection, where you could run 3 engines in the 9 or the 12, or 2 engines in the 7, and roll them engines forward and balance the tractor with like moving the motors on the frame. You had multiple 3, 4, 5 engine modified blown tractors. You had, you name it. You had Rolls Royce engines. You had Arfons with his turbine tractor. You had numerous combinations, whether they were 1471s, whether they were 871s, whatever it may be. But you had so many different combinations, and I think maybe pulling in a way has kind of got hurt a little bit back whenever people like to come in the pits and they like to see you add them motors on those tractors and watch you bolt them engines on from class to class. And I think that I think we might have kind of lived through a little bit of the heyday of pulling back in the day. Not that it's not great today. It is. You guys are doing an awesome job, but I do think that the price of everything is so expensive. It's just very, very tough to do, the average guy. But I do think that new lightweight class, light modified class that I was hearing about a little bit, I think that's a great place for guys to try to start again, because you just can't jump in there and without having a big sponsor or very wealthy business to jump in there and build a 4 or 5 engine unlimited right out of the box, and to have the experience to compete with, everybody at that level. It doesn't matter whether it's a mini, 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive. It doesn't matter what class it is. It's the same way in racing, whether it's a micro sprint with a motorcycle engine on it, all the way up to a full-blown outlaw sprint car. I mean, every class is tough. We're getting ready to go to the Tulsa shootout, and there'll be over 1,700 entries in 4 classes down there at Tulsa where they have the Chili Bowl. There's over 300 midget entries already for the Chili Bowl. But some of those classes will have pushing 400 entries in one class. They'll get it down to the final 20 or 24 in the A main.
And that's all indoors, right, Tim? Chili Bowl?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah, Tulsa down there at Driller Stadium.
I was going to ask you earlier. Obviously, we were getting into the thing with, obviously the different types of classes and everything. Can you kind of run through where it was conceived to just bolt motors on between you and Banners? Like, we're 4, then 5, then 6, then 7. It just it kept happening.
Yeah, it pretty much, Adam, was a horsepower deal. And like when we went from the Hemi, blown Hemis, Aries, minor motors, back in the day to the Chevy engines, why we had to add an engine to be close to the same power. So that's why we had to run 5 Chevys when we used to run 4 Hemis. So we run those 5 Chevys with 871 blowers. So the advantage of that was that, they'd last longer. And one of the things that anybody that has nice aluminum motors back in my era, why the big thing that, and I don't want to badmouth, anybody that had cast iron engines, because that's what I went to kind of prove a point, but they basically wanted to melt us aluminum guys down. And we got to learn the hard way. But back in our era, there was 300 foot. There wasn't no floating finish line. And you'd go 300 feet. You might be the first puller or second or third puller, and you go 300 feet and they'd reset the sled. Well, then you come back and you run again and you go another 300 feet and you're in a pull-off. And then you come back for a third time. And when we had those aluminum engines, we figured out real quick, because we spun the main bearings and them aluminum motors trying to run them 3 times. So we figured out that we had to drain the oil after the second run. And Tammy, she'd get the drain pans out, and we'd have 14 quarts of oil in 5 different jugs ready to pour in there. And we'd change oil between the second and third pass. And people don't realize today how much different that is. I mean, sometimes you guys will run twice, but rarely do you ever run 3 times. And I'm
they had double
back in the day, it was. We did. pretty much. I mean, it was pretty crazy. But like if you was early in the class and you had to set the sled, and then they reset the sled, and then you made a full pull, and 2 or 3 other guys go out the end, and you got to come back again and run a third time to win it. So, I mean, you had to have equipment that would be durable and withstand that kind of pressure. And that was one of the reasons that guys like to run the steel engines, because you could run a steel motor 3 passes, but you couldn't do that with an aluminum motor.
Do you think they need to bring pull-offs back, Tim?
Well, let me ask you guys a question, because I've not got to ask you this, but I think yes and no. You tell me how hard that last 40 or 50 feet is past 300 on your equipment. That's a good question, I think, for everybody to think about.
I think it's pretty hard, I think it's especially hardest when the track is not prepped for it. As far as the duration of seconds of a run, which to me, that's when things get hard on it. I have seen 370-foot passes take the same duration of time as 310-foot passes. I feel like if the track is prepped for it, it doesn't seem to tear too much stuff up. But there's certainly times, and I'm not picking on any specific sled, where just that last 15 feet, it seems like you're almost stopped, but that sucker's still moving, and you just can't bring yourself to lift on the throttle, and, you're barely creeping along, but she's still going, and that motor's just screaming. It seems like that's really when it's hard on it, especially if you get into that unworked dirt. But we've definitely talked on here how in a pull-off setting, you're almost programmed ahead of time. You can only run your engine so hard because it has to make several passes. Where with this one and done mindset, there's a lot of people that say, well, I don't give a crap how much stuff I tear up. I don't care if I, torch the heads at the end of the run. I got to put a set of pistons in it. I'll go out there and scatter everything and burn it in at 365, and I'll fix it for tomorrow. And it would be interesting to see pull-offs, kind of implement that. Hey, you might have to run twice to win this son of a bitch.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
I like the idea of a pull-off only because, I think that I have enough reliability in the engine. The only thing I'm worried about is the tires. Like when it comes down to the tires on these mini rods, Chad's made them a lot better, but the tires here a few years ago, I cut them every single run. 3 tractors, every single pass, they get the tires cut. I mean, coming back for a pull-off, either you bolt another set on and try to hope that they're the same, or just being able to have enough time to set up the tires would be the only thing that I would really want to do.
I personally love. I think pull-offs are great for pulling. I think they're good for fans. I'd be really interested to see, like in current times where technology and everything is much more advanced, if a guy has to go up there with the mindset I have to run twice, how much different things would look. I mean, I don't know how it would look, but I think it's good for a show and good for fans. I do think Unlimiteds now may have a little more to, from a rear end and with the tires where they are now. I think that might be something that it can be done. I don't know if you want to send them out there every time running twice, though, personally, but I guess you don't know, do you know? And that's an expensive test for someone to run that I don't know who wants to volunteer to run it.
Yeah, Tim thinks you're lazy because of that, Chase. Come on now.
Well,
Tim, you tell him. Tell that son of a bitch.
Well, I mean, the only way you can be honest is just be honest. But I mean, I'm not saying everybody's lazy, but I'm just saying one year, guys, this is no joke. I think it was 1989. To win the Grand National points, you had to run your region and all the Grand National events to win I think it was 89. I could be wrong on that, but that particular year, I think we ran 38 events, not classes, just events to win that Grand National title.
so 25 is not a bad number.
So 25 is not a bad number. No.
How many passes could you get out of an engine before you had to tear it apart back then?
Well, I'll be honest with you. We never did try to run ours on kill unless it was pretty damn good money, and probably still not as much on kill as you guys are today. But most of the time we could run 30, 35 passes. You might have put rod bearings in it before then, but today it's nothing like you guys are doing now. But our blowers weren't as good then either. We had 1471s when we were 50 over, but they weren't as good as they are today.
Little known today that people don't. I try to explain this to some of my customers. They really don't understand it when I tell them this, but the intake or the nozzles in the injector hat, or how they are with spray bars and stuff. When you're talking about fuel, you deal with area, but the area in the injector hat and the port nozzles are the exact same thing that you gave my dad in 1988. We have not changed that. And people, it blows their mind. The evolution of the fuel system. Yeah, pumps have gotten bigger. We've changed some poppets here and there. We maybe messed with a few things, but the fuel system is the exact same intake or the above the blower and into the ports as it was when you gave that to my dad in the late 80s. So and I don't like you said, Tim, I try not to run my stuff very hard either. I mean, I'm out here trying to sell my spark plugs to customers, because they're not burned. I don't run computers or anything. I always change the plugs every single pass, but I would love to run pull-offs because I think there's a whole lot more there. I want to lap them, my brother-in-law here a few years ago, he put 44 runs on the engine, and he changed the rod bearings and main bearings at one time. So I think the longevity's in the engine, for some, maybe not all, but I think it would really stir some things up if you did bring that back. But yeah, that is, for anybody that doesn't know, I can promise you that Tim Engler flowed that fuel system in 1988, 1989 for my dad, and it was on a big block Chevy. And over the years, stepping up from different engine to engine, we've carried that same fuel system over. Let me ask you that, like in you've learned stuff in the sprint cars, but has any of that stuff kind of translated from back when you first started till now? Like, did you ever have to go back to almost go forward?
Oh yeah, that's. I think you do that in everything, whether it's fuel, whether it's building compression ratios in your engine. Sometimes you're always trying to go a little more, and you find that edge and you bite, it costs you a lot of money, so then you back up and then you get that durability back. And I think that's part of what you guys are fighting a little bit today. Not so much. I think that if you knew you had to run, 2 or 3 times to win that class, you're going to take some timing out of her. You're going to back them down, or you fatten them up a little bit more. And I don't mean it wrong, guys, but it separates the men from the boys. And back in our day, I can remember some of the best money I ever won for one event was in 1989. We ran at the New York State Fair. They had a 9 model there, an organization called Pool Promoters, put that event on, and it paid $5,000 to win in 1989, the non-modified. We made one pass, and then we were the only ones that got lucky and made a full pull. We was rolling back to the trailer, pulling it back. I could hear it click, click, click. So I knew I'd cracked a tooth on a ring gear in the ring and pinion. So we get back there, we got to tear the rear end out of it, put another rear end together, and get ready for the next class. So, but bottom line, it's I think that I see pros and cons with the like the track, the floating finish line. I see that being a good deal. But, a prime example is Louisville, Kentucky. You go to Louisville, that indoor pool where you don't have that runoff area, it's dangerous as hell to put them in the sand. And thank God we haven't ever got anybody hurt bad. But bottom line, there, you're going to probably have to run twice, or you're going to get lucky if you don't have to run twice to win. And it's a shorter track, so it's not as hard on stuff. But at the same time, you got a different mindset when you go to that situation, when you're kind of going to have that situation. But I do think that, like Tyler, like you said, where the track's not prepared all the way out, that's bad, because then you're going to tear your tires up. And probably one of the craziest things we ever did is we went to Hagerstown, Maryland, and we ran on the racetrack up there, and the stock cars had been there the night before, and there was still black rubber on the track, and they didn't even think about cutting that racetrack. And we took off, and it was actually in a 9 modified with 5 Aries, and it was like you was on ice out here in the wintertime. And I didn't give it a quarter throttle, and it wasn't hardly moving. I just reached up and shut off a motor. And I kind of felt the tractor raise up, and I felt it pick up a little speed. And I reached up and shut off another motor. and I felt it pick up a little bit more, and then I just gradually started giving it throttle. And when I got done, I think I won by about 60 feet, and everybody couldn't figure out what happened. And I didn't tell that story for quite a while, but we had strips of rubber literally hanging off the tires when we got done at the end of the run.
Yeah, it sounded like Richmond, Virginia or something like that.
Yeah, very similar, very similar. So, you know, I see it all the way around, and it's got good and it's got bad, but you know, it's most of the time you go to Louisville and Vaughn does a good job with the sled, and you don't, I mean, it's tough because, you know, he's only got so many feet to work with, and it gives the sled guy a little bit more of an opportunity to let you guys run and put on a little better show and go a little faster by going 330 or 40 or 50 feet. But it's just a different era. Everything changes. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's for the best, but things change, and you know, you live in everything we do today is a lot different than we did 20 years ago.
So if you were going to pull today, and let's say that you set up your tractor to go 300 feet, because that's what you're used to going to, and if you had the option to do so, or maybe you didn't have the option, you couldn't change gears, and then you find out some of the guys in the class are going 360, 370 feet, what kind of gear ratio would you change, or what would you do to kind of, because you never really had to deal with that, did you? I mean, you didn't really have to deal with running 70 foot further. And a lot of times guys want to change gear ratios and stuff. Like in a mini rod, you really can't. Modified, you really can't. I mean, yeah, if you have an overdrive box or something, maybe you could change here or there, but when you can't change gears, how would you approach going down a track where you're set up for 300 feet and then by the time you get done, it might be 360, 370?
Most of the time on a situation like that, I would have to say I'd probably work more with, depending on how good the track is, whether you, in our day where we didn't have very much options on gears, we had to either work with putting power in the motors, taking power out of the motors, running lower air pressure, running more air pressure. I want a mini of pulls, guys, with 18-inch drawbar instead of 20. And a lot of time, where you didn't have enough front end weight.
Couldn't tell Tyler that.
Yeah,
he's not going down the track without a full hitch.
That pains me to hear, Tim. I'm an ignorant moron, so I like to run my hitch all the way up, which is why I always crash my stuff. So now my dad all summer is going to say, "Hey, stupid, remember what Tim said? Lower your damn hitch."
Well, it works. It works.
Yeah, you see in some classes, like a pro stock, you get 5 speeds or 3 speeds. You can kind of just throw it in another gear. A two-wheeler, you can kind of throw it in another gear. And I kind of do the same thing. I didn't change my gear all year long. I just kind of added or subtracted power to the engines to try to kind of make up for it. Didn't always work, but I didn't know. Like, obviously, when you ran, there were some places you guys pulled, you wouldn't go 300 feet. You might go 240.
Oh, I'll tell you what, probably the craziest stuff was when we ran indoors in the wintertime. Believe it or not, we ran on some 150-foot tracks on indoor.
That's crazy.
Yeah, 150 foot. And there were times that we ran 180-foot tracks, and to run a true 180-foot pull, your front end had to be 3 feet from a block wall. That really, that was probably the scariest thing we ever did. Probably the real scariest one, I think Shreveport, Louisiana, we had to pull right into looking at the whites of their eyes at the end of the track. They were on the track. That was probably the scariest thing we ever did. And but it's a wonder we're all still alive. Hell, we didn't have lap belts till 1989, let alone any kind of roll cage.
That's wild. So the sprint car world, I believe, is sort of similar to pulling in the fact that there is no electronic fuel injection allowed. Is that correct?
There is a few classes that you can run electronic fuel injection in, some of the smaller midget classes, but not in the national class.
So you're perhaps a bit biased being a manufacturer of mechanical fuel injection components, but what are your thoughts on EFI in sports like tractor pulling or sprint cars alike?
Well, I'm gonna piss some people off here, so
do it. Do it, Tim.
So in the midget and sprint car world, the big thing we fight is all the cheating that's going on, whether it's traction control, whether it's tire doping, you name it, it's going on. I don't give a shit what they say, but
Right.
it is what it is. And with EFI, we sell a version of EFI because we have some people, and I don't mean to be rude in any way to them, but they don't want to learn about pills and high speeds and fuel injection and pressures and
Stumble valves.
all that kind of stuff. They don't want to learn that. They just want to be able to get in there and let their air O2 sensors change their settings for them according to the air they're in and go from there. And that's one of the reasons we're so busy in the dyno, on the chassis dyno. We make fuel sheets in 1,000-foot density altitude increments from negative 2,000 to positive 10,000. And so our racers can do that. We actually had one of our ASCS 360 guys that we worked close with this summer. He called me, he said, "I'm nervous." I said, "Why are you nervous?" He said, "We're in 10,120 feet. Your chart only goes to 9,800, I think, on his particular one." I said, "Yeah, I'm a little nervous too. I never did run in that either." So anyway, I said, "Keep it at one notch richer on the 9,000 foot range." And I said, "Run hot laps, see how it feels, look at your spark plugs." And I said, "If it feels, everything looks good, go ahead and go to the next setting." But seriously, with EFI, you have a lot of situations, and in pulling, you guys know it's a big, big deal. And there's a lot of smart people in pulling, just like there are in race cars. Just be thankful you don't have to deal with some of the big companies that, and it's not all big companies in the racing world, but when you're dealing with bigger companies, why it's really bad. But it's the traction control is very easy to obtain. There's many kinds. Up there at the PRI show, there's people selling it right up there in the building, probably numerous places you can go. I wouldn't be high on their list right now, but that's too bad. But everything I've always won straight up, guys. I can honestly say I can go to my grave and know that I never cheated. And I earned everything I got the fair way, working my ass off. But I do not like the EFI because you can definitely some of these little micro sprint cars don't have but 120 horse, and the traction control they needed in them, and it's a big deal. And some of them little cars are paying 10,000 to win some of them races. So I personally can back to back our mechanical fuel injection to an EFI unit, and I can beat it ET time, acceleration rate time on the chassis dyno, and horsepower. And I'll go to bat with any of them anytime they want to come. But if they can make their O2 line straighter all the way through the run than I can. But I could probably teach them a few things that we've learned with the stumble valve to lean the motor out to make it take off early on the bottom end and then bridging it back up after you get going. But that's all stuff I've learned the hard way, just like we did in the pulling world.
Did your background of tractor pulling allow you to do what you've done in the fuel system world for sprint cars?
Very honestly, Tyler, I am a lot smarter today on fuel than I ever was when I pulled. Okay. Because I've had to learn a lot more. And when we got into that, and no disrespect to in any way, but most of the engine builders out there were just using the racers or the pullers' money, so to speak, to learn because they hadn't done it themselves. Well, most everything that I build here, whether it's chassis, whether it's fuel injection, I've already done it myself or tried it and proved it. It either cost me money to learn what not to do or not to go that far, and that's how I've learned it. But that's why people come here, because it's not just thinking it's going to work. We know it's going to work.
That's a pretty badass statement. Can you talk about what a stumble valve is? I saw them for sale on your website. It looks like a poppet valve with a little directional arrow. What do they do, or is it just magic that you can't describe?
No, it's a pretty cool deal. I've actually got some of the alcohols super stock guys have got them just to drive around the pits. So what it does, you guys will know this, it acts just like a double main jet off idle, and then you can control it. The ones we make here, and we can make it pretty much at whatever pressure you want it. But like in a sprint car, it's very similar to a pulling tractor because you don't have a transmission to shift. Like a NASCAR car or a drag car that's got a 4-speed or 3-speed transmission, you pull out of the pits while you've got low gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, and you shift. Well, on a sprint car or midget, you take off in high gear at 2,000 RPM. So when you open 8 butterflies that say are 2,900 butterflies per cylinder, and you dump all that air to it, and you're only going 2,000 RPM, why the fuel pressure is not built up real high yet, but it needs to be very, very lean on fuel to help it take off. So by having this stumble valve in there, what it does, it also has a pill in it so you can control how much fuel you let out. So most of the time we'll have somewhere around a 54 to a 60 pill in that stumble valve. And if it's a 410 sprint car, we'll shut that thing at about 40 pounds of fuel pressure. So as it accelerates, it just squeezes a pop it off, and then it richens the system back up as you're accelerating. So roughly we'd say we take off at 2,000. By the time you get at roughly 4,000 RPM, the stumble valve shuts off, richens the system back up, gives it torque, and makes it accelerate faster. And on the chassis dyno, we can actually check ET acceleration rate to 1,000ths of a second, just like a drag car going down a quarter mile. So if you pick up 1/10 of a second, pulling the drum on our dyno is 3,600 pounds. So if you pick up 1/10 of a second of acceleration rate, that's a big, big deal. Right now, a lot of your World Outlaw sprint cars, even the midgets, you might have 8 or 9 guys within a 1/10 of a second. Some of them are within thousandths of a second.
How many, I have to ask you, how many approximately, I don't know if you might know this number, but how many dyno runs do you believe that you've made at your shop over the years?
Well, this is going to blow your mind. So you remember back in COVID?
Not really. I know this because the city of Princeton probably wants to kill you. But
thank God I've got pretty good neighbors that we're out in the country a little bit, but we've got a lot of people that's built up around us. But back in COVID time, we had bought new software for our chassis dyno, and we shut down the chassis dyno side, but we kept the other side of the shop open the whole time. We all talked between each other, and we said, hey, we do some agricultural work here. So if anybody says anything, you're going to work for the agricultural side. So we had enough work to do. We all talked, and we all wanted to work. So we all worked every day. We was very blessed. Only 2 guys got COVID, and I paid them to stay home, and they're 2 weeks, and they came back, and thank God nobody got very bad sick, and everybody did great. But during that period of time, we had put the chassis dyno in. It'd been 2 years and 7 months. Okay. So I told Tally, I said, my daughter, I said, I want you to put that new computer in and download all them files so I save them and put that new software in there. So she did that one day while it was shut down over there. And she come over here and she looked at me and she said, she had this weird look on her face. I said, what's the matter with you? And she said, I know why you're tired. And I said, what do you mean? She said, how many runs you think you've made on that dyno since you put it in? And this was just the chassis dyno. This wasn't counting the engine dyno at all. I said, shit, I don't know. I haven't had any idea. I said, I wouldn't know I wouldn't want to guess. And she looked at me and she said, 32,600 pulls in 2 years and 7 months. And
I mean, when I worked for you, you had the engine dyno, which you weren't logging any of that stuff back then. I don't believe.
Every run that we did make on there is saved, believe it or not. On the computer.
Is it?
It is. Yes, we have all those files saved. But
so 2 years and 7 months, you had
32,600 pulls.
Yeah,
so if you were going to guess over the years, how many dyno runs do you think you've maybe made?
I have no clue. I actually started working over at Willie's carburetor shop. He put that chassis dyno in I think 93. It was either 93 or 94. And I used to take everybody over there. And Shit, I wouldn't guess. I bet we've made $250,000 pulls.
That's wild. So just doing the math there, there's 943 days in 2 years and 7 months and 32,600. That's an average of just over 34 and a half dyno pulls per day, every day, not skipping one for 2 years and 7 months.
And he probably didn't.
Whoa.
We try not to dyno on Saturdays or Sundays, but there's been a few Saturdays we've dynoed, but we usually average seriously 100 a day.
What's the most valuable thing you've ever learned on a dyno in your entire life?
Ooh, that's a great question. Probably the stumble valve.
Yeah.
I'd have to say, I'll give you an example, like a good 410 sprint car. Steve Kinzer brought his son Craig's car down here a few years back, and they didn't have one. And Steve had his own engine dyno in-house, and he came and he sat there and he watched me, and we made a run, and first pull it made it. Took off pretty good, got up about 3,000, and the frame just shook. And I said, you see how that's shaking? And it had a big dip in the torque curve. And when we got done, we put that stumble valve on there, and we picked that car up over 3/4 of a second of ET time, and it picked it up 144 foot-pounds in that dip.
Jeez.
So that was probably one of the coolest things that we had ever done. And it's not uncommon to see 100 foot-pounds if they don't have a stumble valve, because that's probably one of the coolest things that we've done is design and build that thing. And it's no different than pulling. They put big camshafts in those engines to make them run at the big end. On the naturally aspirated engines, those heads on those small block Chevys are flowing over 440 CFM, and that's pretty damn good for a little small block Chevy head.
Yeah.
So the ports are raised up 4 inches above the deck, so it's damn near straight down in there. But all in all, I mean, that's probably one of the coolest things we've got to develop, and we use it on not only the micro sprints. It's an absolute must on those. We don't shut it on them until they get up to 8,000 RPM, but those engines turn 16,500 RPM.
16,000, yeah.
Jeez. How many stumble valves do you think you've got out there in the world?
Boy, that's a good question. I'd say there's over 1,000.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And Tim, I've always been meaning to ask you this because me and you share a pretty common thing. Like, so I quit working for Tim years ago, and then we kind of did my own thing, and I've started doing this. But a lot of the time, we'd run into each other at the UPS store there off of Diamond Avenue, and that's where we have to do most of our catching up most of the time.
Yep.
It would be, they closed at 7:00. You usually see him in there about 6:45. That's about the time I was going in there dropping parts off. How did you feel whenever they shut that thing down?
Well,
I mean, I know you can still take packages there, and I'm sure you do.
I was just down there last night, walked in the side door and put it on the belt.
Yeah. They closed down.
Yeah.
They closed down our UPS hub.
Yeah.
Where we couldn't drop our packages off, but you still can sneak down there, can't you?
Yeah, you can still sneak in there. They give you a dirty look once in a while, but most of the time, as long as you pay your bills good, they don't care.
Yeah,
but
they don't care.
But
yeah.
A lot of times, good example is, we had some guys that was needing some things pretty bad last weekend, and we're still running a few little indoor events places, and so we, our pickup guy, he's usually pretty cool. We got one of the best UPS guys around, or a couple of them that come in here, and they'll usually come back if they know that we got something we're working on late, but sometimes they can't stay that late, and a lot of times,
right.
I've took stuff in there and put it on the belt at 7:30 at night, and it'll still get there the next day. But that's that too. But I've made a lot of trips to Evansville to take care of pullers and racers to make sure they get their stuff next day.
Oh yeah, that's like I said, that's where me and you had to catch up most of the time. We'd see I'd see you maybe at Rule King or something like that.
Yep, a lot of good
But
time.
Tim, it was a given. I was going there about every day, too. I kind of learned from the best on that. Hey, my UPS guy was here at 4:00, and there's a lot of time between 4 and 7 where guys calling needing parts the next day, so he had to run in there, and I run into him all the time. But it was a given that there's about a 90% chance you're going to see him at UPS every night.
Yeah, those are good memories, Adam. A lot of good times. I used to see your dad in there a lot too.
Yeah, he would run stuff in for me a lot so I could keep working. That was always really good. He just loved to drive.
Yeah,
He'd love to drive.
I always tell people that's my sanity trip at night. A lot of times I'll call guys back while I'm on the road, and
right.
So that's usually when I catch up.
Now, let's talk a little bit about this injection, because I was there for one of these ordeals, and I know you probably don't like talking about it a little bit, but machining magnesium, and some of the stuff that goes with it. I think one time you were getting ready to get back into sprint car racing. You bought a nice gooseneck trailer, and you'd gone through and built an all new car and got it all ready to go, and I built some like the tire rack and the gear rack and stuff in the trailer and stuff. And I think we were sitting in the office, and I think one of the guys was told to take a rear end housing outside and grind on it outside because you're making dust in that shop right there. And right out to Tim's right there is the wall, and there's a garbage can that sits right outside that wall. And they got a porting room in the back to his left, all the way in the back there. Used to be before they added on stuff. There was a porting room back there, and it's about what 6 by 3, 4, or 6 by 4, a little room, 8 by 4, tiny room. And you're grinding on these magnesium runners because when you machine them, you can get the majority of them finished the way you want, but there's some corners you need to go in and blend and sand and whip and put the crosshatch in it and do all the stuff that you need to do to make the runners really work good. And there's a vacuum there that this and they had some boys come clean up the shop. They would clean out that trash can back there, and trash guy'd come on Friday, so usually Thursday night they'd come out there and they dump that magnesium dust in the trash can. Well, me and Tim were sitting in the office there, and I see that white trailer turn completely orange, and I think Tally was down in the horse barn behind the shop there, and she saw the flames from above the roof line, and it sits down probably 15 feet, 50. It's further. It's pretty far down. Actually, it's probably a lot further than that. But the way behind the barn, she said 50 feet further down, and that was one of the most intriguing things that I've ever seen about the magnesium dust. Like one spark can set off one hell of a fire. Now, you've had that happen in a machine. Can you kind of tell us about what happened there?
Yeah, the big mag tractor hubs are on unlimited modifieds, and about all your component super stock, pro stocks today. We buy that casting. That casting starts out about 90-pound casting, and the big flange where your wheel bolt's on, we use a 5-inch face mill, and it was going around there making a first cut. And whenever they'd cast that hub, I don't want to talk bad about anybody. I'm sure it was a mistake, but anyway, they dropped 3 pieces of steel into that cast hub.
Uh-oh.
And that cutter hit those pieces of metal, and it set off a red sparks. And we had a 6-month-old brand new CNC machine, and it caught on fire. And luckily, I was in the office. One of the young guys yelled and screamed real loud, and some of the guys left the building. They was going to let her burn. And
yeah.
Anyway, we had quite a few magnesium fire extinguishers that we had around the shop.
Not cheap.
Not cheap. No, they're not cheap, but thank God we had them. And anyway, you guys probably know Josh Miley. Well, yeah. Josh formed me in the tractor shop before he quit and went home to take care of the farm there for his dad. And anyway, he come running up through there. We'd emptied 2 of them on there, and I'd got it kind of broke up a little bit into separate little fires, but it was still burning. And by the time I come out of the brick building and went back in, I met him, and you couldn't see your hand 3 feet in front of your face. The smoke was that thick. And we made it in there to the machine, and we hit it with 2 of them at one time. And we got it broke up into 4 little fires. And then some of my other guys was carrying floor dry, kitty litter, anything like that to try to.
Can't use water. You cannot use water. It's an accelerant.
Absolutely not. If you've ever thrown gasoline on a fire, if you take and put water on a mag fire, it is worse than throwing gasoline on a fire.
Just in water-based coolant in a machine
Yes.
that you're using is basically you're shooting gas
Yes.
at the cutter. And if it hits metal, you're asking for it.
Right. We just kind of went through that a while ago, and was showing them some of the fire extinguishers. We have a big one now. It's real big around. It's got a CO2 bottle on it. It's got a hose on it that's 25 feet that'll reach to, we only run mag in 2 machines now. And we have special coolant that we buy now that's biodegradable, and you mix it with water, but it has been really, really, really good. Knock on wood, we've had 0 issues since that time. But this coolant has done a really, really good job. But that's,
almost lost the whole shop.
it actually got the steel up in like the above me here. You see like your barn metal up in the ceiling. That's the way it was in there. It got that metal so hot that it actually bowed down probably 4 inches, and the paper on the rolled insulation up between the trusses, it got it smoldering. And I went up there, and I just about didn't get back down. I had to take breathing treatments for a couple of weeks after that. The fire department actually got here. They were scared to death because they don't own one of those fire extinguishers, and they know we cut mag every day. And they said, "Have you got the mag far out?" I said, "Yeah, I've got the mag far out." I couldn't hardly breathe, and they went up in the attic with their oxygen tanks on and watered all that mess down and made a hell of a mess in there. But at least we didn't lose the whole building, but or both buildings. But that was a pretty scary deal. A lot of the times we get a young man in here and we'll take a little quart can full of mag shavings and take it back down by the barn out in the open and light it.
Explain to him.
Take a little bitty coffee cup of water and stand back 6 feet, throw it on there, and it'll blow 6 feet in the air. Their eyes get big and they're like, "Holy shit!" I said, "That's why you don't put water on a mag fire."
And you don't grind on it out with the other stuff. You don't. I mean, it's got its own little area.
Right.
You work with it at.
Right.
I just remember that was like the craziest thing because we were out there shoveling dirt into the trash can trying to put it out.
Yeah.
It melted his truck, it sits kind of up off there's like, it kind of goes down a little bit. His truck was sitting there. There were some tires and stuff sitting out there. It melted the fucking front bumper off of it, melted the headlights. It melted the damn lettering off the tires. And that truck was sitting 25 feet away from it.
It gets super
hottest fire I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I just remember Jackson used to get in there and you'd see him carrying around a little trash bag. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm taking this home to kill some weeds." He'd go home and sprinkle on the weeds around his house so he'd kill weeds with it.
Yeah, I'll tell one.
And light it on fire.
I'll tell one on Tammy. We had a stump. If you ever got a stump and it's out in the open,
Oh, yeah.
you get you a garbage bag full of mag chips and put it on there, and it'll burrow right into the ground.
Really?
But anyway, he lit one up out there underneath the power lines one day, and she called me. She said, "I think I made a mistake." I said, "What'd you do?" She said, "I put Magfar on that stump." I said, "Out by the road?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "How big's the ball?" So it had a white ball about 6 feet in diameter. It looked like an atom bomb was going off. Anyway, luckily it didn't hurt the power lines and nobody got hurt, but it's kind of I could tell a quick funny story on Ralph Banner. Dave, he'll probably remember this. Any of the guys that got to go up there, and I used to pay Ralph many years ago. He loved turning that mag because he liked those shavings, and he actually took a couple barrels and filled 2 55-gallon drums full of shavings, and he put about 10 gallon of water in the bottom of them, and he had some holes in the side to give it a little air, and they shot that thing and lit it. And it literally blew 200 feet in the air on a bright sunshine day and looked like a bomb going off. He had to show me that video. He was so proud of that. But
just for the hell of it, hey, let's see what this will do.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I got a pretty wild introduction into that stuff. I thought that'd be good you tell some stories about that, because I don't think people realize, like, every pro stock tractor out there's got Franklin magnesium planetaries on. Like, just the scariness of what could happen if there's impurities in the metal, or just the slightest thing. You're machining a bomb almost.
It is. It's pretty scary. But as long as you keep a fairly big chip, it's not bad. But
good.
Like, you can take it when it's in a solid, and like to put the bearing races in it, you take a torch and heat it up just like.
And heat it up. Fine. Yeah.
It'll grow, and you put the race in there, and it won't catch on fire as long as it's in a solid. But the finer the chip, the more volatile it is.
Like they get back there in that back room and they're doing that finishing sanding or porting on those runners, and it gets into dust.
Yes.
And that's what had happened. I think Jeff at the time was outside grinding on and the trash can was closed.
Yeah, lids were closed.
But the lids were closed. But I mean, just one little spark landed on that thing and it blew up. Bomb, big old bomb.
That's wild that when it's in a solid state, you can take a torch right to it. Like, I wonder molecularly, like, what is it about, like, the increased surface area that just, it's really wild that water just makes it act like that.
Oh, yeah.
I never knew that.
Oh, yeah.
See, magnesium, when it burns, it makes its own oxygen. So when you throw water on it, that's got a lot of oxygen in it. So it's just like igniting like gasoline on a fire.
Yeah. And even some of the fire extinguishers, they don't really work.
No.
You have to have special.
Yes. Yeah. Most of them are yellow. And
are they halon? Is it halon?
No, it's a powder, and it actually doesn't squirt out of there very fast. It just smothers it. So you kind of have to smother it out, take the oxygen away from it. It's the only way you can put the mag far out.
Yeah. That's why we were scooping dirt up, throwing it in the trash can, because we had ran out of fire extinguishers. You're looking for anything that you can get your hands on that's not water.
Yeah.
Put the fire out.
Sand, anything like that.
Was that your worst day at work ever, Tim?
It was probably one of them. It was definitely one of them. Main thing was, again, nobody got hurt.
What was worse than that? What was worse than that, Tim? Anything that jumps to mind?
Well, I don't know. I'd say that was up there high on the list. Sure.
Oh yeah.
Probably one of the worst things, guys. I'll tell you one of the worst things that wasn't at work, but this will make you appreciate some things. And Adam, being the engine builder he might remember this, he might not. But you guys might remember the 6-engine modified tractor that Brian Schrammick had.
Oh, yeah.
So we were building that, and we didn't get it done till last minute. I slept about 2 hours, loaded it in their trailer truck, drove their truck to Toma, taught Brian how to start it at Toma. And the first pass he made down the track, it blew 5 of the 6 engines up.
Yeah, I remember that.
It didn't throw the rods out of it, but the blocks, normally when you check valve clearance or you degree your camshaft, you do it on number 1 cylinder. Well, this particular, every one of these blocks exaggerated. The bores in the block were not square to the crankshaft, so they were going uphill.
The dowel pins off on it or something? Like the heads were sitting off on them?
Yes, they had got the cylinders in the block crooked.
What?
So,
yeah.
Number 1 had plenty of clearance. Number 2 didn't have as much. Number 3, or in other words, 1, 3, 5, 7 on the left bank. Why? By the time you got to the back, time you got to number 7, the intake valves hit the pistons.
Oh.
You couldn't hear it, or it wasn't bad until you got it up on RPM. So we hadn't had it up on high RPM until we went down the track. So I got to bring it home and then tear it all down and fix it.
Weld up all the heads, didn't you? Didn't you have to weld up all?
All the heads, had to redo all 6. It actually hurt the 6th one as well. It just wasn't as bad. But that was probably one of the most expensive, aggravating things we've ever dealt with in pulling or racing.
Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah, I guess it's hard to screw up 6 motors at once in a sprint car, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Sure.
Tim, you were talking about this earlier with Wayne's tractor, his 5-engine tractor. If you had a blank checkbook and had all the time in the world to devote to it, if you wanted to build an unlimited tractor today in the current climate of pulling, what engines? Obviously, it'd be an Engler chassis, I assume, but what total combination would you do?
I'd probably build it exactly like Wayne's with some minor motors. Okay. Nothing against the Hemis, but you got to realize I'm old school from the old times, and you can take the heads off those engines, as you guys know, without having to pull the blower and injector. That's a big deal when you're kind of by yourself and you don't have a big crew of people. And without a lot of my fellow pullers back in the day, why, hell, we would have probably never made it. But I mean, we had a lot of great friends, and that's what the sport's all about. But
would you put screw blowers on it?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. I don't think it's necessary. Not if you run 5.
What would you run? 5.8s or 5.14s or 18s, or what would you think?
It definitely wouldn't be no 18s. I'm not so sure you need more than 5.8s.
Do you think it's
Wayne's tractor? He has 4 18s and 1 8, right?
No,
I think
aren't they all 5?
Yeah, he has 4 of them are 18s, and the 5th one has an 871, I believe.
Do you think it was is it a good rule change, Tim, that they're going to allow screws and 18s in the modified class?
Well, again, I'm not sure I'm the best guy to answer that because I don't dyno near as many supercharged motors as we do, naturally aspirated engines, because that's more of our business now. But I would have to say Adam might be, or whoever gets to dyno those screw blowers more so than me. I remember when Boyd's were playing with that, and it's just so much more horsepower. It's almost like free power when you put that screw blower on there.
Yeah, I know they got the overdrive down on them, like 90. And if you want my opinion on it, I think that's not enough. Just my opinion.
Not down enough or not enough overdrive?
Not down enough.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's too high.
It's probably too high.
Those Pro Mod cars
I'd say it needs to be down there around the 67.
Yeah, 65.
Yeah.
Run those Pro Mod
You're
cars.
talking a little bit more about it. I mean, you look at the 871s, and they're restricted to 45%. And 18, they can run 65%, 70%.
Right.
Like I just don't think their numbers.
Run whatever you want to run.
Right. I don't think that's kind of the basis that you need to judge it on, like, oh, we're going to allow this overdrive on this one, this overdrive on this one, this overdrive. And they're not right. That's just my opinion.
Because in your day, Tim, the classes were set by weight, dimensional restrictions, hitch height, and that's about it, correct?
Well, yes and no. I was on the board at NTPA, on the NTPA board many years ago. And I honestly felt like that when we made some of the regional restricted classes for the modifieds, where we'd run 3 871s on wedge type motors, or you could run 2 1471s. I felt like years ago we had that stuff pretty close years back before the blowers and everything got a lot better. I really think to do that fair, I think you got to have kind of a floating rule book, so to speak, or if you was really going to do it right. And I know one of the problems in pulling is we've never had the budget to play with, but I know I offer my dyno from time to time. Tony Stewart owned a little 3/4 midget series, and he had a lot of different combinations. He had some older Honda engines in there that guys had bored out, was running big cubic or big CC motors. And then he had other guys that had Suzukis that were pretty much stock, but they had R injectors, and had Kawasaki's that were 636s that were bigger yet and newer style motors. And I said, hey, bring them down. Let's put them on the dyno and let's see where they're all at. And let's just really be honest with each other. And the guy that was kicking everybody's ass, he didn't have as much power as some of the other guys that they was trying to limit him and throw him out. He was just a better racer.
Right.
He had his combination better. And you guys know that from me. It doesn't matter what class you're in, whether it's two-wheel drive, minis, unlimited, supers, pros, whatever. You got to match the combination. Everybody wants to say, well, he does this, he does this. So I said, I don't give a shit what he does. You got to do what works for your motor, your tires, and your chassis. And that's the best thing that I can tell anybody in pulling is you don't worry about what everybody else does. It's fine to be on the lookout and watch what other guys are doing. You might learn something, but I know there's a lot of cool shit that we're doing right now that you can't see. Right. And, it's there's a lot of things that when it comes to making those limits and those rules, I really feel like if one guy dominates and you see he's got a big edge, then you gotta man up. And anybody in their right mind is going to know if they let screw blowers run at 90% and they dominate, then you need to slow them down.
Right.
And nobody likes that, but at the same time, if they're really straight up, they're still going to be very competitive even when you bring it down. And in their equipment, if they want to do it a different way, they can put more timing in it, or they can lean it up a little bit or do whatever. But most of the time, the cream rises to the top, whether it's kind of like but one of the things I will tell you that in the race car world, the 360 sprint car world, that was originally designed for a kind of a beginner type class with a restricted head and a restricted injector. And now the 360 engine costs $60,000 to build, and you're better off to build a 410 and run for double or triple the money. Yeah. Anytime you have restrictions and rules, a lot of times it causes guys to do more R&D, more dyno work, and more development.
Tim, would it be safe to say that you're a part of the times when 871 blowers versus 1471 blowers for modified pulling was introduced? Was 871s brought to the table because it was a cheaper option than 871 or than a 14? Is that safe to say? Is that why, or is there other reasons why?
Well, it definitely was cheaper. But
I asked that question, Tim, because right now a brand new 871 costs what a brand new 1471 costs. So when a guy makes a decision to buy one of those, like, why would you do one versus the other?
Or you buy a 14 because you can sell it, and an 8 you can't, and neither you can an 18. Can't sell them either.
The guys that are building the 871s, they're just taking advantage of the people if they're charging them more, because I don't give a shit. The cases and the rotors are shorter, so there's not as much material. Now, granted, it might not be a lot different, but there's going to be a difference. But back in our day, you could buy, an 871 for $1,500-$1,600.
How many manufacturers were there? You had Littlefield, what everybody ran, right? And then there was some cool blowers or Mooneyham. That was about it. There wasn't really any options.
There wasn't a lot of options back then. There was, believe it or not, Waterman built some of the blowers. I had all the blowers on that original 7-engine tractor I had, because they were all mag cases.
I was going to say magnesium cases.
Yeah. We saved a lot of weight with them mag case blowers.
But the principle of an 871, like, how did an 871 blower come to pulling? Like, can you give me an answer from your standpoint?
Well, see, when we started, Chase, you started with 671s, and then hell, they hadn't even built an 871 yet. And then when they did the 871s on the diesels, well, then they had an 871. The guys said, well, hell, let's build an 871. So then they went to an 871, and then they had 1071s, and then they had 12s, and then 14s, and then, now they've jumped to the 18s. That's how it all started out. We didn't have anything better than 871s back in the day. And then we actually ran some 10s. I never did run it. Then we went from the 10s right to the 14s. But we had 1471 Littlefields on that tractor in 1986 and 87. And they were, I'd say, if you could put those engines on a dyno today, they'd make 2,000 horsepower. And they were pretty good. We were.
Can you maybe explain to me, because I kind of want to know the history of this myself, because it's the engine that I manufacture. At the point in time when you purchased those 5 engines from Arius, like, they weren't really known. Like, who had them back then? Keith Mulligan, or was it Mulligan or Milligan had
Yep.
them on the Kentucky Thunder with
Yep.
Bill Farmer?
Yep. He had two of them on there on that Kentucky Thunder tractor. That was the first place I seen them.
Mm-hmm.
And they were big in the boats, the drag boats. That's where they were real big in. And but that's when I seen and researched it, and seen how they were built, and still got 10 head bolts just like you do today.
Yep.
And it we torqued them at 140 pounds back in the 85 era. I don't know what you do today, but
225.
anyway, the studs are a lot bigger today.
5'8".
But anyway, yeah. But back then, they were half-inch, and so I mean, pretty much that was the early. You talk about hard to get parts now. Originally, to get crankshafts and stuff like that, it was really, really hard to get parts for those engines back in the day. And one of the hardest things was when we were going through breaking crosses in the rear ends, and before we had billet carriers and all that stuff, we didn't over-rev all 5 motors. I did that 3 weeks in a row and rebuilt 15 engines in 3 weeks. And that was exhaust valves, tagged to pistons, and it was that was an expensive 3 weeks, and that was the year that was in basically 87 when we won all 4 titles. So that was just a little more work to add to the headaches.
The parts really didn't become available for the engines really till later when Joe Fontana had it.
Right.
And Bob hold of it. I mean, even when Bob first got a hold of it, it was really kind of difficult to get parts for the damn things.
Yeah. It's very hard to get parts for them.
It was kind of like a roundabout way, the way all that worked, because Joe Fontana bought the engine from Arias, but he was also doing midget engines?
Midget stuff. Yes, sir. He had a 4-cylinder midget motor. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I actually dealt with every one of those guys. I knew Nick really well. And one of the last years I was at PRI, he came by there and I'll tell you guys a quick story, and you get a kick out of this. But I was one of 3 dealers that Nick had that sold Arias engines to tractor people, and we got a whopping 10% discount. So after I won 3 titles in 1986 and 4 in 87, and I was going to build another new tractor, and I used to sell my engines every year and have new parts. And so I called him and I said, Nick, back at that time, we built a lot of 2-wheel drive engines for other people, and we built some other tractors with 3 and 4 motors. And so anyhow, I think we sold like 28 engines that one year for him, and or at least all the parts, that we bought from him. But so I said, I'm going to build 5 more new motors and build another new tractor, but I said I need 15% discount, and he said, well, that ain't going to happen. And I said, really? I said, you don't think I said, I'm not asking for every other engine, just for my own 5. He said, you can't win without my motors. I said, what do you say? He said, you can't win without my motors.
No, I knew that story.
That was the reason I switched. Okay.
Right.
All right. So you talk about being nervous. You might remember this, you might not. Jim Lyons, he helped me on the very first Chevy motor that I built. We ran that one Chevy with those 4 Aries down in Florida, and kind of tested it out. But if you want to talk about being nervous, you ought to go order 7 new blocks, 7 new cranks, 7 sets of rods, 7 sets of heads, 7 blower manifolds, and 7 blowers, and 7 injectors, and start all over with something totally different. And that makes your old rear end pucker a little bit whenever you do that.
Well, not only that, just after you dominated, because arguably that 5-engine tractor, 4-engine, 3-engine, or 2-engine tractors was the most dominant on the planet.
It was one of the ones for sure. It was.
Yeah, it was really good.
It was, but like I said, it made me earn a lot of respect from my fellow pullers when we did that, something totally different, because they said, well, you're not going to be able to win now. It'll take you a while to figure that out. And I remember that one year we went to Louisville with all 7 engines on it and the 9 modified. I got beat 20 feet. And I told Tammy, I said, well, we'll never do that again. She said, why is that? I said, well, the track's too short. It's too heavy on the front. So we won it the next 3 years in a row. So 6 motors. So that's kind of going back to the short track thing you guys were talking about. Usually you run a short track, you don't have to run quite as fast a gear.
Right.
You got to get your speed and get rolling because but the sled's coming on you quicker. So you kind of got to be careful on how fast a gear you run. It's got to be a really good track to be able to handle a fast gear.
Yep. So we're closing in on here a little bit. I usually have a couple questions, just like one of them. Do you have a travel story that has maybe stuck with you over the years, all the years running up and down the road, that maybe you'd want to share with us?
Well, there's probably quite a few, but
well, I'm sure there is, because I've heard a bunch from the group that my dad used to run around with. So
right,
I just didn't know if you had any good ones.
You got to realize, probably one of the craziest things I ever did when that first 5-engine tractor, we built it. First place we went was, man, I can't remember the exact. I want to say Council Bluffs, Iowa, but that's not right. But it was out in Iowa, and I can remember turning off up on north of Terre Haute, off of Highway 63 on the Interstate 74, and there was about 14 inches of snow on the ground, and you couldn't tell where in the hell the road was. And I had this brand new tractor in the trailer, and it was about 15 or 20 degrees, and the wind was blowing like hell. And I'm thinking, how stupid is this? But anyway, we won that deal, and that was probably one of the stupidest things that I ever did. And some of the other times we went in snow 14 to 16 inches deep to the Pontiac Silverdome in the wintertime, and we got there, and we had tanks under our trailer that we hauled the alcohol in, and we had to take a shovel and try to find a spigot to figure out where to drain the fuel out to be able to get fuel to put in the tractor to get the alcohol out of there. But probably one of the craziest trips I ever had is one of the rare few times that my dad went with me. And we were going to Des Moines, Iowa, and we got out, a little ways, going across 74, I think it was, across Illinois, and the air governor on the 903 Cummins blew apart. And I didn't have my buddy Fred Freeman around there to help me.
Yep.
I had to try to find some parts and fix that damn thing, and we got it fixed. It got there at about the last minute you could possibly get there, and ran that thing across the scales, and I think we won one class, got second or third in the other class. And coming home, we drove through the night like we all do. It's a miracle we're all still alive. But anyway, good Lord above's watched over all of us a lot. But bottom line, we were coming south of Terre Haute, and there was these kids in a little Chevette car, and they run off the road. And Adam, you probably remember my old semi used off a little. I don't know.
I remember it.
But it was an old cab over Freightliner, no power steering. And so you're the first one there at an accident. But anyway, these kids in this car, they run off the right side of the road, and they spun that car right in front of us. And they were looking straight at us. And my dad was about to jump through the windshield, and I pulled that thing out in the median and drove them kids, and you could see the whites of their eyes. They thought they was going to die right there.
That's crazy.
And I got that thing back on the road and looked in the rear in the mirrors, and I'm like, holy shit, they was out. You could see them jumping up and down, looked like they was shaking the shit out of their shorts. But
I guarantee it.
Yeah, but that was probably one of the craziest trips I had. But I could tell you stories similar to that all night. I know you don't want to hear all that shit.
No, Tim, we've already decided You're going to come back once a year because this could be freaking 20 hours of questions, and I hate to end it because it's normally we're trying to like be strategic in questions, and me, Adam, and Tyler have talked less this show than we ever have because we're all like,
I like it.
Yeah, and totally enthused.
yeah.
All right. Well,
my question is, and Tyler, you can have it. Tim, how much do you watch? I mean, do you keep up with pulling? Do you watch pulling? Or like, are you obviously you have customers and you're in business, but do you watch and have an idea of what's going on week to week and like your current? You said I don't know the last time you went to a pull, but can we ever see it at a pull sometime soon?
Well, I'm definitely going to try to make that one at Evansville. I used to go to the county fair pull that they had it, still had it to fair. And the last couple of years I didn't because we were trying to get ready to go to a race. And I had some outlaw teams here dynoing. But this year, I might not make every day, but I'm going to damn sure try to be there and try to do anything I can. I want to see that really be a great event and like to see it come back year after year. I used to go down there and pull at Evansville because Evansville used to have a Labor Day pull. It was an NTPA Grand National pull at Labor Day weekend.
Really?
And that, yes, that was a very, very big event. It was a 2 or 3 day deal, and it was always over Labor Day weekend. And it's a great facility down there, and it I don't get to go very much. I'm gonna be honest. Kind of a sad story. I used to go to Louisville every Wednesday of Louisville, and I lost my dad on Wednesday of Louisville in February in 2014. And of all things, we lost my wife's mother Wednesday of Louisville the very next year. So it's kind of a tough time to always remember. But anyway, I wanna try to get to some more. I told my daughter this year, I turned 70 this year, guys, and I feel pretty blessed to get out and go. And I'm in here every morning at 6:30, and if I get to the house by 8:30 or 9, I'm pretty lucky. But I still enjoy working hard and trying to make these engines run and help people, and makes me feel good when I can see young guys like you guys. If I get to do something to help you, it makes me feel good. And a lot of people I've got to take their kids that I get to work with these little race car kids, and I see them grow up, and now they're outlaw sprint car guys, and I've got to help them and build good relationships and really, really good customer bases as well as great friendships. But I definitely don't get to go to as many pulls, but I catch hell a lot from my wife or my daughter because I'm looking at my phone and checking results, and I definitely see where you guys are finishing, and I try to watch, some videos that I can see and catch up on some of the things and talk to a lot of my customers when they're coming in and out of here. But I keep up with it more than most guys my age. But I like to watch them when I can, because I still learn every time and look at little things. And the best thing I can tell you guys is just always study them videos.
Tim, that means a lot hearing all that from you. And I again, just listening to you talk and your stories, this has been like a little kid listening to a hero speak in front of, I think they said 20,000 people tuned in at this point. But if nothing else happens tonight, Tim, the guy with the really loud mouth that's there with the glasses that's setting all this up for you, his first name's Beer. Make sure he leaves there with a way for you to watch pulling all the time on your TV, like live. Like if he does nothing else tonight, make sure he teaches, or your wife shows you, and you'll have access to watch it, because that's very deserving and that's awesome.
Yeah,
I love it. Well, Tim,
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
we do a segment on the show called the Rapid Fire segment, and it's kind of a little bit more of a silly-natured segment. So there's just a couple of questions we're going to peel through here. You can just give rapid fire answers, no reason to elaborate or anything. They'll be pretty easy for you. Starting out, what is the worst Christmas gift you've ever received? Just real quick answer there, Tim.
Boy, you got me there. I don't know.
Come on, there's got to be some crappy ones.
Boy, I'm not sure.
Okay, you want
Just make sure it didn't come from your wife or daughter.
You never got a Christmas present, I guess.
Yeah, I was a bad boy, I guess.
all right, lump of coal. We're going with that. All right.
There you
Do
go.
you think Wayne Purser will ever shave his mustache in your lifetime?
Oh, I hope not. Hell, we wouldn't know him.
I agree with that. All right, Tim, if you had to pick one other chassis builder to make you an unlimited tractor to campaign, who would it be?
There's not too many others that build chromoly frames.
You got one in mind. You got one. You're thinking of it.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I mean, Modern does a good job up there. I'll
Okay.
give them credit.
Hey, you had a way out, Tim. You could have said Josh Miley because he builds your chassis.
That's right. I should have said Josh because Josh and I work together a ton.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough.
I'm getting old.
Yeah. Tim, what's the dumbest rule you've ever seen in tractor pulling? Real easy question here. Yeah. There are no wrong answers, Tim. Do you want to skip that one?
Yeah, let's skip that one.
Okay, we can skip that one. All right, this one's much easier. What dish of food are you the master at preparing?
Not too many.
None?
Probably a steak guy.
A steak? Yeah. All right, well, I was hoping to catch you on a roll, and then I could slip this one in here. This one might be harder. Who in the pulling world has benefited from copying your designs and ideas the most?
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
I think he's out of business.
Oh, is that a subtle hint?
Yeah, I'll just put it that one.
I know who it is.
Okay, do you want to say who their name rhymes with or no?
No.
No? Okay.
I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, we'll move on.
No,
Tim.
he knows.
All right.
No.
The best advice for younger people that are trying to balance a work-life relationship, what piece of advice do you have to give them?
Family first. Always take care of your family.
That's solid. Who is your all-time pulling hero that you look up to?
Believe it or not, I always liked the Super Banana, Lloyd McVeigh.
I love it. I love it. What do you think the most entertaining class in truck and tractor pulling is?
Absolutely, the mini rods.
Yeah, attaboy. Tim, what is the best gift you have ever given someone?
Ooh.
Tim's like a stumble valve.
You already answered it once.
The best gift, huh?
Yep.
I don't know if I can answer that, Tyler.
You didn't think you were going to be
While
asked
he's
that,
thinking,
but-
I can tell you this. If you worked at Engler's and it's your birthday, you're getting donuts on your birthday.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
Donuts
That's not
on your
bad.
birthday. All right.
I'd have to say my most precious gift is my daughter.
Okay. I love it. What modern day puller do you think would do the best hanging with you guys back in your glory days of truck and tractor pulling?
Ooh.
That's an easy one, right, Tim?
I'd say Brett Bird.
Okay.
Good answer. Good answer.
Only two left here. What puller do you think would make the best sprint car driver?
I'd say Purser.
Okay, yeah, he's a wiry little bastard. All right, real easy one here to end it out. Out of everyone that you've ever made a pulling chassis for, which one of those characters would make the best evil villain in a movie?
Wait,
Well, you're really trying to get me in trouble, aren't you?
Yeah, that's my goal usually here.
The best villain, huh?
Yeah.
Ooh. Man.
Yeah, you got someone in mind. You're just wondering if you should say it or not.
Tyler,
I
you
don't wanna
might need to ask him what it rhymes
I don't-
with.
Yeah, you can say what it rhymes with if you want to.
Oh,
You can-
my.
I want you to come back on, Tim, so if you want to skip, we won't judge you.
Yeah, that's all right. I got to work on some of them. You got some good ones.
Yeah, I try to get crafty with those. That's the whole rapid fire segment right there. But real quick,
I
one
didn't do
question I
very
like.
good.
You did fine. One question I like to ask people: if it's Bowling Green Saturday night, your last hook in the class, it's always sweet to get a win, but it's always sweeter when you get to take it from that certain someone. Over all your years pulling, who was kind of your arch nemesis? Where if you got to take that win from someone, it meant that much more.
Oh, I'd say it had to be the Banner brothers.
I figured so.
They had 2 tractors, so if you could beat both their tractors, you did something.
Right.
Absolutely.
I had a few Banner Brothers questions. I think this could turn into an hour. People always talk about the history of pulling rivalries. I'm not sure one's stronger than Engler Banner Brothers, but we're going to save that as a teaser for the next show. And Tim, my last question that I have here, what's your evaluation? You left pulling in 91 as a competitor, and the technology and the competition is extremely elevated. Not a lot of things have necessarily elevated with it. What is your honest take, and I know you're an honest guy, on the current state of pulling? There's been a lot of stuff going on and happening, I think, for the good the last few months. What's your current opinion on this pulling, and what do you think the future of pulling could be from your opinion?
I think you guys need to run for more money. I question whether or not you need to have as many classes.
Oh.
I feel like that sometimes the sport gets spread too thin by trying to get more members, and we got to have more sponsors. That's the name of the game. If I give you an example, I can build a sprint car, and you can go run it for $250,000 to win, and there won't be as many people there as there is at Bowling Green, but you only got one class.
Right.
So I do think that I felt like back in our era in the mid 80s that pulling probably paid closer. We could kind of pay our way pulling.
Didn't you win a truck?
Yeah, I should have won 4, but I never did get 3 of them because that, and I think 3 trips to Hawaii that we never did get either. But yeah, because the money wasn't there.
What organization was that with, Tim?
NTPA.
So what happened there? What were the details?
Basically, the money wasn't there at the end of the year, and I'll be honest with you, I don't want to badmouth NTPA because I still like it, because I feel like it's one of the one thing about NTPA I'm going to tell you that's always been the best I felt like it could be was I felt like they tried to run true, fair competition. One of the reasons Tim Engler quit is when TNT sold out to United States Hot Rod Association, and I went to the Pontiac Silverdome, and they put the brakes on me and about throwed me over the steering wheel, and I got beat 60 feet. And they said, Engler, you didn't win today. When I went to get what little money I had coming to me, and I said, yep, and I'll never be back. So I said, that's part of what burnt me. I mean, I always wanted to race, and that was just the straw that broke the camel's back. But I honestly feel like that too many sponsors have been burned over the years by pulling I probably won the most money in 1989. You guys might not know this, but I won $32,600 for winning the points at TNT.
Wow.
In 1989. Went to 11 cities, guys. That's the best money that I know of that pulling's paid to this day. You guys might correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, you're giving RJ's props for his 50 grand to win. We'll give him that one. But as
think
far as
that's
running,
true.
as far as running a point circuit, yeah, that's by far the.
Yeah,
Well,
I think the deal that RJ and those guys have done, and some of the things I'm hearing rumors about, I think it's awesome. I think one of the things that our sport has to do is we got to bury some old past things that kind of put a black eye on our sport. And I think you guys are gradually digging out of that, but there was a lot of sponsors that kind of got burnt or used up. And it happens in everything. It's not just pulling, but there's a lot of good people out there that like the sport. And I feel like that's the future of the sport is you got to have good sponsors.
Well said.
Yeah.
That
Definitely took care of my question because my always last question is like, what is one thing if you're in charge of pulling? What's the one thing that you would do? It sounds like you're nailing that one home.
That might have been the most straightforward answer we've ever gotten on that. Well done, sir.
I love that.
Yeah, no kidding. That was perfect.
All right, so Tim, I think next December before Christmas, we're going to lock you in. You're going to be a December show every year because we got like 18 more hours to go of questions.
We got to be careful when we schedule this. You got to remember he's got the Chili Bowl and all that stuff coming up. It's hot season right now for Tim Engler. They're all juicing up this month. When New Year's rolls around, the first of the year, they're all out in Tulsa, and that's a huge event for you guys. So.
And Tim, we sincerely appreciate you making this time to do this. I know you you don't do stuff like this all the time and blocking it off for those guys that come to your shop. And there's some cool behind the scenes footage that's coming out here soon with some Dan Mayer went and spent a day with Tim Engler. You're going to see all that stuff on Full Pull Live. Tim, any final words before we cut you out until next year?
I just appreciate all you young guys doing what you do and carrying the sport on. And when you get to be my age, it makes you appreciate, the past more. And when you see good young people carry it on, that's the only way it's going to live, guys. It doesn't matter whether it's pulling, whether it's racing, whether it's horse showing or racing boats. It doesn't matter. It's every generation. You got to have the younger generation to help carry it on. And you guys are doing a great job. And I thank you for what you guys do as well. And I'll help you in any way I can at any time.
Appreciate
it. Very good. Tim,
can't thank you enough. Hey, I got to ask him one other thing, just selfishly. Tim, I'm working on an LS swap for a car, but I'm getting rid of the fuel injection, putting a distributor out front. I saw that you guys list a micro electric water pump on your website. Well, with my distributor out front, I don't have room for the regular water pump. Will that remote micro water pump circulate enough gallons per minute to keep like an engine cool on the street or not necessarily?
The one we sell is more for motorcycle engines, but there are electric pumps that could definitely do that. And
totally remote mounted, like not even belt driven, just electronic.
Yes, you can do that.
Okay, yeah. I figured if anyone would know, it would be you. Sorry to take your time, Tim.
Yeah. I had like 10 people message me wanting to say stuff, but Joe Ader wanted me to tell you thank you.
Exactly. Joe sent me a message too.
Yeah, and thank you. He said, "Tell Tim thank you for everything." Maybe when we get you back next year, we'll dive into some more stories with Joe and everyone else. But I want to make sure I pass that message along and appreciate you coming on, Tim, and happy holidays to you and your family.
The same to all you guys and all the pullers out there. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Tim, have a good night.
All right, you guys too. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Tim.
Holy
Boy.
shit.
Best phenomenal guest.
Yeah.
Sorry to sneak that one in about the water pump.
Because this guy is like walking book of knowledge on everything.
Yeah. I had to say it was like I just want to reiterate like so I'm graduating high school and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had no idea. I got got a baseball scholarship to Vincennes University, and I just remember we had talked about working up at Tim's. I didn't know anything. I mean, nothing. I knew nothing at all, and I went up there and we kind of started working around him. And he's like, Adam, Vincennes got a great program up there that you could go and work, and they got a nice tool and die program and be really good. It's a nice starter to get you going. He said, or you could work here for me and I'll teach you everything you got, or everything that you need to know to run these machines and do all this stuff. And I remember we decided, since I had the baseball scholarship, I was going to go to school, and he went out of his way and he rounded up all the tools. And I still have a majority of them, if not all of them, the tools that he rounded up to me. And he had given me like indicators that were his from like when he started machining. And like I still have that stuff in boxes, and I still used a lot of that stuff, but he taught me a lot of things. I got to experience a lot of things working at that shop, and got to work with some really good people, and really kind of pushed me in the direction that I went. I built my first engine that I ever built was up there. They taught him and Wes, and taught me how to build those.
Still money
those
from
things.
You're working in his shop.
Oh, that was a little far fetched. It was a little far fetched on that stuff, but I will always, when I worked for Tim, what I really wanted to integrate in was the CNC stuff into the tractor pulling. And at that point in time, it was just, he was so heavy into the sprint car stuff that, that was the main focus. That was the money maker, or what he was. I mean, it's really amazing that the guy even has tractor pulling stuff anymore. I mean, the chassis keep up. We always had Engler chassis and everything. And be honest with you, the whole reason I didn't call Tim Engler to build me new chassis is because he's always lined up with pro stocks and all kinds of stuff going through the shop. And, he's such a busy guy that that's why I called Modern, about some of that stuff. But the guy goes to any length to help anybody do anything, even if you're not really a customer of his. I mean, he'd be more than willing to talk to you and help you out. That's always respected about him. He gives you more time than anybody. Even if they're not, you could buy a $5 part for him or a $500,000 part for him, and he's still going to give you the time of day. That's what I've always respected about that man. He's a genuinely good dude when it comes to helping people out.
70 years old, still putting in 14-hour days. What a legend.
Yeah.
Him and my dad their birthdays were only a day apart. I think Tim was younger than my dad, but their birthdays were only a day apart.
Yep. Sounds like he's coming to Evansville May 28th and 30th too, Adam. And
maybe I just get him wound up. We stick him in one of these mini rods.
I think you should. I think he should.
He didn't rule it out that he would never not pull again.
No,
so,
not at all.
I could see him like a guy like him, and I don't know him at all. Getting like in the light mod class or doing something cool like that, which would be amazing for pulling.
He drove that 6-engine tractor a few times there for
Ceramics when they had it. Yeah.
Ceramic. I remember at Fort Recovery, he drove there a couple times.
Yeah, but we're at PRI obviously the rest of this week. Adam, you're coming up tomorrow or Friday, or what's your plan?
I'll probably be up here Saturday. I got a bunch of stuff around the shop I need to focus on.
So Adam's tractor will be at PRI. Go say hello to it if you see it there.
It's in the Pull Town, USA National Tractor Pulling Championships, Bowling Green, Ohio, booth 1933 in the Green Hall. It's there with the blue shirts. I took the blue tractor up there yesterday. We got her loaded in, and I think pulling's got a pretty good impact there at the show.
It does.
I think it's more pulling vehicles than there's ever been.
I saw like on the I don't know the fancy word for it, like those like little signs where it points you in directions. They got some like layout of a vehicle in the background that's you don't really see, but it's like a sketch. And there's like those of pulling tractors everywhere in that place when I was walking through it earlier. So that's a little detail. Then Adam, next Thursday, there will be more info to come on this probably tomorrow or Friday. There's going to be a press conference and a little mini party at Evansville at the Vanderbilt County 4-H Center announcing a title sponsor, ticket sales, and all the exciting stuff with the Evansville event May 28th through the 30th. So I will see you there, I hope.
Should I bring the other tractor to put on display?
You have so many tractors. You should put one on Orlando. That way you could have one in each location for within 3
Yeah, if I the funny thing is, Chase, I don't think that mini rotor would have fit that little black trailer that you took yours down in.
Yeah, no shit, right? Tyler, what else you got? We got the holidays, and then we'll be back January 7th after the first Wednesday in the new year. I believe we have the Dirt Slinger pulling team coming on. But
yes.
Anything else to report on?
Yeah, Tyler, you ever going to tell us what your dad purchased and that you're trying to find time to run?
Yeah, right.
Or
Me and all of my free time. Once we get it home, we still have to go to Iowa to pick it up. But once we get it home, I'll show you. Maybe I'll have a clip of Bruce that we can throw on the show. But yeah, that's the teaser of Farmer Bruce bought something non-pulling related that has more horsepower than my pulling tractor.
Wow.
That he thinks we have time to campaign. So that's going to be interesting. But yeah, he was pestering me earlier today. He's like, "Don't forget, we got to go to Iowa to pick this up." I'm like, yeah, got it. Thanks, Dad. You know, what a guy. But yeah, we took some time to go deer hunting this past weekend. Me, Farmer Bruce, and my brother-in-law Kyle. So that was a pretty good time. It's only the second deer I've ever shot. We got a little 6-point, and yeah, it was a good time. So
you got any snow on the ground?
We talked about Donald earlier in the show when he goes deer hunting.
Your daddy getting on them snowmobiles?
Donald, it takes him 10 bullets to hit a deer, so you're doing better than he did.
I've shot at a deer twice in my life, and I've gotten 2 deer, so it's nothing but bad luck from here out because I'm not exactly a big hunter, but it's fun. Bruce can just show me the ropes, tell me everything I'm doing wrong, so it's a good change of pace there. So we do have to shout out Norm's son Andrew. It's his 18th birthday, so I got a request to shout him up and then shout him out, and then not to end the show on a somber note, but I feel like we'd be foolish to not mention the Boyd family. And thinking of that family with the passing of Steve, he was an awesome guy to have in the sport, to watch him run, and I feel like he pushed everybody a little bit harder. So definitely thinking of all them for sure. So that's it for me. Fantastic show. We're going to come in under 3 hours, gentlemen. How about that? Nothing to it. And to think when we started this, we said, hey, it'll just be 45 minutes to an hour. That's all we need. So how about that?
Very good. All right. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. See you guys soon. And thanks for coming back again.
Cheers.
Remember to call our hotline and give us those text messages.
Back to the hotline next show. That's a wrap.
Yeah. All right. See you.
Yep.
See you.
That's a wrap.
Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the No Practice Podcast.
Have a good one. Bye.
Stay tuned for the next episode, where we guarantee there's still